success. All the tech, you know? Seems to me like we need to eclipse some of that stuff. Melissa, it's nice to see you over on the live YouTube. I'm going to put a link in the chat to the Zoom webinar. Anyone who's watching this on YouTube live anyway, and it is currently Friday the 13th at 11:20 a.m. So if you're over there on YouTube, you're welcome to join on the Zoom live stream if you'd prefer. I'm just going to grab a link to put into the YouTube live chat. If you're watching this in YouTube in the future, of course, that will not be an option to go join the Zoominar live because it won't be live anymore. But I do intend to look at some charts. Some people here share some live with y'all, and so the Zoom would be the place to do that. Although that being said, I'm already seeing like 9 sets of birth data in there, so we're probably full. However, if you want to get involved in the chat and connect with community and whatnot, the Zoom might be a great place to do that as well. I won't be able to monitor them both. All right, well, let me stop this share and I'm going to start a recording and we'll dive into this thing. Buttons. Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. Gemini Brett here on Friday the 13th of October 2023, if you're into that whole Gregorian trip anyway, and we are preparing for a Libra annular eclipse, the Ring of Fire, which will align tomorrow on October 14th, followed by a very partial or even penumbral lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. So Libra and Taurus, those who have been studying astrology might instantly ask, what about Venus, right? Since, of course, we know Libra and Taurus as the two homes of that great goddess of the sky. And let's look to what Venus is doing now. The best place to do that, by the way, is to wake up before the sun and to go engage with morning star Venus, who's very bright in the next 10 days. Will be, I believe, on October 23rd, 23, when Venus reaches maximum elongation in this particular cycle as a morning star, which means furthest from the sun, and therefore rising at a time well before sunrise. So you really will get a chance to see the morning star Venus just beaming, you know. And it's kind of interesting to consider Venus from a Libra perspective and Venus from a Taurus perspective. Or Venus from a Virgo perspective, perhaps, which is where Venus is now. So we'll look at that a bit. I'm going to look at this chart, maybe these charts for the solar and lunar eclipses in general, and then we'll bring it into charts. We'll probably along the way explore a few different places online that are just really wonderful eclipse sandboxes to play in, where you can learn about when eclipses are visible, like where you reside, and learn about eclipse cycles and the like. You know, for me, I'm very astronomically inclined in my astrology, so I imagine our tour of eclipse astronomy won't stop there. We'll probably look at this eclipse from a constellational point of view and all sorts of other things. So thanks for being here on such short notice. In true eclipse fashion, I had a student and a client like back to back reschedule. And so I was like, oh, sweet. I'm not going to not talk about astrology. So why don't I just beam this out live? And it's cool to see so many of you here live at YouTube and also at the Zoom webinar, and to have a bunch of chart data. I just want to say one thing about that. Now, and I'll say it again before we get into charts, like I'm not going to press so much here. Eclipse can bring in serious shadow, right? The symbolism is pretty clear, right? Shadow, and then a new light. Yeah. So eclipse sessions tend to get into pretty deep shadow work. And that's something I do in personal sessions for sure. That's something I will do less in a public forum like this. This is being recorded, it is live on Zoom. So if anybody comes in and says, hey, I'd actually rather not like talk with you live, that's fine. If we get into any areas that you would rather not go to, just like hit the stop. I don't want to press and I won't without consent. And mostly I'm going to do what I can to follow your lead if you're on here looking at your chart live. All right. And I appreciate the nicknames that have come in with the chart data at the Q&A here on the Zoom side. I'd ask for more, but I already have too much, so I think we're probably good to go explore what's already come in. All right, well, let's look at these charts together. Maybe even before we do, honoring Venus too on Venus's day, Freya's day, Friday, right? I mean, Friday the 13th has become such a thing of horror and superstition and the like. Um, I was once taught that our true work on Friday the 13th was to stay inside and make love because Venus's day Friday, and that there's something about 13 and the goddess. Now, some will say that because there are 13 moons in a year, and by the way, that's as not true as 13 signs. But the moon and 13 are very clearly connected because the moon moves on average 13 and a third degrees through the sky each day. And there's a kind of a hidden root of 13 in the Venusian pattern as well. There's a couple of them actually. I imagine you've seen the beautiful star that's drawn in Earth's zodiac by Venus and Sun over the course of 8 years, right? Or from the Sun's point of view, there's a pentacle drawn by Venus and Earth. Actually, from the Sun's point of view, it's a double pentacle. 8 Earth years, which is the amount of time that it takes for we Earthlings to experience this star drawn by Venus and Sun in our sky, are 13 Venus years, right? So Venus is closer to the Sun, it's on the faster track. Yeah, Venus gets about the Sun on average in 225 Earth days, right? So a shorter year on Venus. Yeah. It's less than a day on Venus, but that's a different story. Okay. Anyway, 8 Earth orbits, 8 Earth years are 13 Venus years. And in that time, this 5 pointed star is drawn in Earth sky by these consecutive Venus Sun alignments over the course of 8 Earth years, which are 13 Venus years, 5 kisses of Venus between us and the sun, and 5 with Venus on the other side of the sun as well. And 5, 8, and 13, if you've studied your sacred number and geometries, this is in what is now known as the Fibonacci sequence: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144. We can go on to infinity, the golden sequence, which approaches the golden ratio. And this is in the pentacles geometry, and it's here in this beautiful symmetry of Venus and Sun and Earth sky, or Venus and Earth and the Sun's experience. Another thing there is the Venus star, it very slowly retrogrades through the zodiac. And on average, we'll have a Venus star point in a sign, like in the sign of Scorpio, where Venus and Sun have been meeting from Earth's point of view for about 100 years now. On average, we'll have 13 cycles, synodic cycles of Venus and Sun in a sign before retrograding to the across a cusp. And in fact, we are in this amazing time um, where one of these 5 Venus star points, which has long been in Scorpio, is now regressing to Libra. It's a homecoming for Venus. Another one of them has been in Aries, and it will in our lifetimes head back into Pisces, the place where Venus is said to be exalted. Another one is currently in Gemini, and that point will eventually go to Taurus. So, interestingly, in the 5 archetypes that the Venus star has been painting, which are um, Leo, Aries, Scorpio, Gemini, Capricorn, Leo, Aries, Scorpio, Gemini, Capricorn. I'm trying to say that in the correct order to paint the star. 3 of these 5 are traditionally associated with Mars, Aries and Scorpio being the domiciles of Mars in the tradition of astrology, and Capricorn, the place where Mars is said to be exalted. And in time, and it's going to take some time, we will have 3 of these 5 star points in Libra, Pisces, and Taurus. So Taurus and Libra, the signs said to be Venus's domiciles. And Pisces, the place where Venus is said to be an honored guest, the place where Venus is said to be exalted. If the code of astrology and this idea of domiciles and essential dignity, that there are signs that kind of resonate with the planet's energy, in places where a planet is maybe most comfortable or most alive or most natural. If this is real, then we should expect some beautiful leanings towards the Venusian as we age. In this time, it certainly feels quite Martian, doesn't it? Turn on the news. This is being broadcast live on YouTube, a place of great censorship these days. And so I'm learning to either keep my thoughts to myself, which I don't prefer, so I can preserve the opportunity to really deeply engage with individuals, which I'm very honored to do in my work. And also to learn to speak in code a little bit more. I also want to honor everyone, right? And we have different leanings and different opinions, often based upon information, and I would say the lack of information finding its way to us. But of course, this does not feel Libra eclipse aligning tomorrow. And one of the great Libra energetics is balance and harmony, peace. Certainly doesn't feel like a time of peace. And for those of us currently experiencing peace in our own personal lives, yeah, like when we walk outside and feel safe. Tomorrow I will go to one of my favorite places here in the Bay Area and sit and watch the eclipse. Um, and I'll do so in a place where I'm not personally worried about being attacked, you know? For those of us who are blessed enough to have a peaceful experience in our daily right now, and who can feel that safety. I think it's really important for us to hold that, and receive and offer that in a state of just kind of deep gratitude and presence. Yeah. I don't think I will be surprised if I find myself hugging a tree tomorrow because it's such a peaceful thing. And hugging my beloved as well, which, is another wonderful privilege that I'm currently experiencing in life. All right, so let's look at this chart together. I'm not going to dive as deep into the chart as I typically would because we have much to do. I really do want to get to some charts here. I'll probably look at mine before I dive into some other charts just to show you a few things I do with eclipses, where I'm always looking also for eclipse cycles. So I'll introduce some of that stuff along the way. By the way, I'm currently free until like 2 p.m. And like we'll see how long I can go or how long y'all can go, but I'm in it here. I'm here for a while. So make sure if you need a break to go receive some starlight outside, including perhaps that of the big one we call sun. Get into nature. It is the key here. Yes. This is being recorded. This will be on my YouTube channel. An easy way there always is geminibrett.com/YouTube. It will be on the live space. It's just basically like where I'm at these days in public sharing, and that's kind of been few far between, but I'm hoping to change that. But yeah, if you want to take a break or you got to get back to your work or whatever, just know that this will be here if you'd like to come back in and take it a little further. All right. So to the charts. You'll notice I don't have asteroids on here. I don't have Eris, Haumea, Makemake, other so-called dwarf planets. I am showing Chiron, but not other centaurs, right? There's so many points that we could put on a chart. I'm not saying that they're not worth looking at. This is just what I'm showing. When some of y'all come in here live, if you know your chart really well, if you happen to know the eclipses on your asteroid Juno or on your Centaur Phobos or something, and you'd like me to put those on the chart, that's cool. For those people coming on live, like I'm not just going to talk at you, I'm going to bring you on live and we'll be side by side. We can have a conversation and we'll go, where you bring us as much as where I might suggest we go. So here we have two charts. The Libra solar eclipse, which is an annular solar eclipse, and the Taurus lunar eclipse, which I believe is a penumbral lunar eclipse. So even right then, I'm like, oh, well, let's go measure the sky, which is astronomy. Let's tune into the quantities before we get into the correspondences or the immeasurable, the qualities. And that being said, I'm going to bring up a website here. Where did you go? Oh, there you are. Okay. That on your screen. So this is moonblink.info. Sadly, Moonblink just got eclipsed by Google. They like caught up with Moonblink, who had been using really wonderful like deep zoom Google Maps so you could really see and track eclipse paths. And sadly, that part's gone away at moonblink.com/eclipse/search. Hopefully, it's coming back. Um, we will see. They are showing, as you will see here, like I just typed in the year of 2023, and then I see all of the eclipses in this calendar year. So here's this October 14th, 2023 eclipse, and you can see it's solar, and this means it's annular. Okay? Yeah, so I was wrong. I thought that the lunar eclipse coming was penumbral. It's actually a partial lunar eclipse. All right. So let me first just click here. Um, and this is where there used to be this interactive map. Sad. But these are made by NASA. And it tells us many things, like this is the 44th of 71 eclipses that belong to a family that the astronomers call Solar Ceres Series 134. I think we'll have time to look a little bit to that, at least to that astrologically. It shows us where the path of this eclipse is, at least where it can be seen in annularity. I'm currently sitting here in the Bay Area of California. My plan was to go up to Oregon so I could see this ring of fire, and I just spent too much money getting to my uncle's funeral last week, and so that trip got eclipsed. But I'm happy to be able to sit at home or in my home zone with some eclipse glasses on, or maybe old school like Mesoamerican, which is like looking through stone and to see this moon like come between us and the light. Yeah, anywhere in this shaded region we'll be able to have a visible experience of the eclipse, clouds allowing. And so, like here in Southern California, for example, you can trace this line and see it says 0.8. That means 80% of the sun will be occulted by the moon when viewed from this place. It changes based upon where on Earth you are looking from. That's a wonderful thing called parallax. And there's some places that will not be able to experience the solar eclipse at all. For some of them, it's just nighttime and the moon will be occulting the sun down beneath the ground. For other places, it will be daytime, like down here at the southern tip of Chile, for example. But because of parallax, the moon will just be either below or above the sun in the sky, and so no shadow play there, right? But very importantly, we're talking about the alignment of Earth, moon, and sun. right? Not Oregon moon and sun. It's something else to be able to see an eclipse. I imagine many of you have been initiated. I'll be heading to Austin, Texas to see um, the total solar eclipse in April of 2024. I was blessed to be able to see that total solar eclipse in August of 2017. Totally changed my life. I've brought many people to see eclipses in groups. Always something shady happens. Always. And always something very brilliant and beautiful and light. I'm not one to propose hiding 22 feet underground, protected by lead and whatever, sacred crystal of your choice so that the eclipse light can't touch you. Um, but I will say you always want to be careful and you always want to be present. You really want to be present with your thought. You'll see that things happen rapidly during eclipses. A lot of shadow comes in to be purified. Yeah. And it's okay if we're in a really challenging place or in a challenging thought stream. Like the worst place you can go is then shaming yourself for that. While you're in it, understand that it's as you know, any sacred timings are. It's a time of purging. Yeah, a metaphor I've long used is you walk into like that club with a black light. And suddenly you see all these stains on your shirt that you weren't aware of. And then you come back out of the club and now you can't see those stains anyway. I think you can see this one. Anyway, but do you choose to wash the shirt? You know what I'm saying? Like that's up to you. And so it can often be like that with eclipse timing. Some things that come up that have been so like buried or suppressed or kind of pushed away that you're like, whoa, well, I still have that. You're like that's me, or is that me? Right? And then we just continue to do the work. A big question with eclipses in general is like, how long do they last? A good general rule is 3 months before the eclipse and 3 months after the eclipse. And then we move into the energy of the next eclipse that will come about 6 months later. Eclipse seasons happen when the sun is either at the north lunar node or at the south lunar node. And that draconic year, it's about 354 days long. So it's about 6 months between eclipse seasons, where it's either typically a solar eclipse followed by a lunar eclipse, like this one coming here, or a lunar eclipse followed by a solar eclipse. Sometimes you can have solar, lunar, solar, very partial solar eclipse surrounding a total lunar eclipse, or lunar, solar, lunar, with penumbral, very, very partial lunar eclipses surrounding a total or an annular solar eclipse. This is an annular solar eclipse tomorrow, not a total solar eclipse. So let's talk about what that is and why a little bit. Um, Orbits are elliptical, not circular. Yes. So the moon Earth thing, their dance is not a circle. Moon's distance from Earth changes over the course. Every month, the moon gets close and far. That's a different kind of month than many that we are used to, by the way, like the month of phases. That's called a synodic month. It's about the synod or the meeting of moon and sun, which we will have with tomorrow's solar eclipse and all new moons, right? Moon and sun meeting in Earth's point of view or Earth's zodiac. And the synodic month is therefore, moon conjoining the sun and separating from the sun, getting full and coming back, right? The anomalistic month, the month of the anomaly, is about the size of the moon. For those of you who follow astrology, you can see this with true black moon Lilith in a chart. I'm going to bring up an image here. All right. This is rather exaggerated, this. But the idea is orbits are elliptical, all right? So the moon Earth thing is much more circular than this, but to make a point, all right? Speaking of a point, circles have one point for a center, yeah? Ellipses have two foci. Because the Earth is much more massive than the moon, much less massive than most planets and their moons, right? Our moon is ridiculously huge in comparison to the Earth, which is some weird mystery miracle stuff as far as I'm concerned. The moon is 3/11ths the size of the Earth by diameter. Um, and that's huge. Like our moon is the fifth or fourth largest moon in our solar system. Consider that we're comparing Earth's moon to moons of Jupiter and Saturn when we say that, right? What a trip. Neptune has many, 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 many moons, and Earth's moon is larger than them, right? Larger than the many, many moons of Uranus, too. There's something weird going on here. Anyway, Earth is much more massive than the moon, so one of the two foci of their orbital relationship is within the bounds of Earth. It's not at Earth's center, and it creates this interesting kind of like wobbling of the entire Earth Moon system. Um, but the other foci is this, so-called dark point in space. There's no body here. That's astrology has come to call this place Black Moon Lilith. This, by the way, if you've studied your Liliths in astrology, is not the asteroid Lilith. That's in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. It's not the so-called dark moon Lilith. That's the idea that Earth actually has another moon that we just never see. It's this second foci. And the calculation that I personally prefer is called true black moon Lilith. I like to call it far moon Lilith. Because if we face Lilith from Earth, we are aligning our hearts with the lunar apogee, which is where moon is furthest from Earth. All right. Opposite that point is the lunar perigee, which is where moon is closest to Earth. And close moon means big moon, and bright moon, and fast moon. And far moon means slow moon, and dim moon, and small moon. And this is really important because when we see an eclipse like this solar eclipse here, it's very close to the lunar node. All right, certainly close enough for us to experience a total solar eclipse. However, because the moon is on the Lilith side of the zodiac and relatively close, this is true black moon Lilith, or so we think, this means moon is slow. So I said before, moon is like 13 and a third degrees per day. Here we see 12 and a third degrees per day. It's a slow moon. And slow moon means far moon, and far moon means small moon, right? So even though the hearts of Earth and moon and sun are very closely aligned for this Libra solar eclipse tomorrow, October 14th, 2023, even though they are so closely aligned, we will not experience a total solar eclipse, but rather an annular solar eclipse, or a ring of fire. Let's take a look for annular solar eclipse images. Right? It's this amazing thing that happens. And by the way, demonstration of eclipse glasses, do it, right? If you don't have eclipse glasses and you do have some thin obsidian around, yeah, obsidian monocle will do it for you. It's a good idea. I think it's a very powerful way to experience an eclipse, actually. I got this one at Palenque, right? This is a way that the Mayan observed eclipses and many, many other cultures in Mesoamerica, as we call it today. So annular solar eclipses, and let's look at this image, kind of showing us where on Earth the annular solar eclipse can be experienced. And by the way, this includes some of the Mayan lands down here in Yucatan Peninsula, Quintana Roo. Here's another. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't put a bunch of slides together because I wasn't planning on doing this. But I did say we would go to another place online where you can kind of see your local view. I'll show you what mine will be. It's a pretty cool time lapse of an annular solar eclipse happening. Let's dig into this a bit. Gosh, it looks fake And it has to be, right? Like, because there's no way that like the stages of an eclipse would happen at the same altitude above the ground. All right. Anyway, let's like we'll be here because it's a beautiful photoshopped thing. But just to honor that while the hearts of Earth, Moon, and Sun are like totally aligned in annular eclipse time, the Moon here shown occulting the Sun does not occult the entire Sun disk because the Moon is a bit further from Earth and therefore apparently smaller in our sky, right? And not large enough to occult the entire disk. So you get the ring of fire, which is a powerful thing. We live in this kind of miracle experience. Some say it's a limited time of the earthly experience. I wonder about that. I mean, I really honor like what we're learning in astronomy and science, but we haven't been looking for long. So, like the astronomers today will tell you that the moon is moving away from the earth. And so, our experience of having the moon totally occult the sun during a total solar eclipse is like, you know, get it while you can, a limited time for the earthly experience. Happen a lot longer between, than our lifetimes and that of our children's children, but that we are at this kind of limited time of the earthly experience to be able to experience a moon totally occulting the sun disk. Um, that being said, we don't even know what the moon is. We don't know where the moon comes from. There are so many mysteries about the moon. And we've been tracking this for such a limited amount of time. And we've had the technology to be able to track like the distance between moon and earth to the precision required to even notice that it would be moving away for a very, very limited amount of time. This could be just another tidal thing. It might go out and come back in. So I'm of the opinion that we should honor like the science that comes through, but be really careful to take it for, gospel in any way. That'll get you in a lot of trouble. It's hilarious, I find, that we were raised in science classes laughing at the idiocy of the ancients who believed the earth was the center of all things, that the earth was flat, that believed in astrology and other such nonsense. And now we know fucking everything. It's like only that last thing, well, the astrology bit. Because of this last thing that you think you know every now and then, that is criminal. And it will keep you from learning anything. Anyway, it is taught by the astronomers today that this experience of a total occultation, total covering, total eclipse of the sun by the moon, it won't be available for Earthlings forever. So, what a sacred time to be living in. There's a really wonderful and interesting eclipse number called 400. Why? Because the diameter of the moon, is 1/400th of the sun's diameter. The sun is 400 times larger than the moon just by diameter. The sun, like you could fit a lot more moons than 400 inside the gigantic sun, right? According to modern astronomy, anyway. But like the diameter of the circle, the disk in our sky, right, looks to be the same. And the reason why is the moon's diameter is 400 times 1/400th that of the sun's, but the moon is 400 times closer to us, right? So my hand looks bigger when it's here than it does when it's there. Like I can't occult Mount Tamalpais with my hand at this distance, but I can here, right? It's like total eclipse, annular eclipse, right? And again, the moon is varying in her distance from the earth throughout the course of the anomalistic month. And so not every heart to heart to heart alignment of earth, moon, and sun will produce a total solar eclipse. We can have, like we will tomorrow, an annular solar eclipse, a ring of fire. I think a big question is, okay, well, what does it mean? I don't know. Does anyone, like, opinions have been offered? Is it as strong as a total eclipse? I'll say from my experience of the two, my experience of a total solar eclipse is way stronger. I don't know if you've had that experience. I'm sure many of you went and saw the 2017 total solar eclipse. Like, it's astonishing, right? It's like, thank gosh I learned that it gets a lot colder because I was out in sunny and hot Idaho at the time. And fortunately, I had a windbreaker with me because it dropped like 20 degrees Fahrenheit in that minute and a half of eclipse. You know what I mean? Like, what a crazy thing. I'm actually really interested tomorrow where I will be to experience a temperature drop, if at all. We'll certainly be getting less sun, but it's not like you have 360-degree twilight, which is what happens during a total solar eclipse, right? And the shadow comes zooming at you from the west, and the birds and the insects quiet, right, and do their night routine for a minute or seven. Now, getting back to how long do eclipses last, some would say that the longer the eclipse, the longer its energetic participation with Earth. Um, I don't know. I haven't been looking long enough. I'm kind of honor what some of the ancients have said. I love some of the theories that have been put forth. Some say a 7-minute solar eclipse will have 7 years of effect. It's hard to say. I personally still riding waves of that 2017 eclipse. Like that kind of put me on the map as an astrologer, and that helped me meet my partner, and so I think I'll be feeling that forever. Does that mean it's that eclipse is still happening? Who's to say? Do you know what I mean? Like there's a bit of the sky that we can measure, that's called astronomy, and there's a lot that we really can't, and that's called correspondences. Astrology is the rainbow bridge between the measurable and the immeasurable, the quantity and the quality, right? And so we want to watch and see. And it's interesting in times of eclipses, to kind of predict what it will be about and look at how they align to our own charts as we will. But a whole other piece of that is going back to like the last time that degree of the zodiac was eclipsed. Does that tell you something? What was happening in your life then? The last time that an eclipse of the same family came around. And we'll do a bit of that today here as well. All right. Um, an important thing, and this image, actually, I want to look for an image that's a little bit more authentic to a Earth experience. Like a time lapse. Let's see what we can find. Yeah, well, this is amazing. Okay, let me get this up on your screen. First of all, this image is like my fave. And I wish I could say who put it on. I just searched annular eclipse and it came up. Like, what? That is so amazing. I imagine you've seen that series of photographs before. Looks like this one of a 2007 eclipse by Bill Freimeyer. How cool. So one thing to know about eclipses that's wonderful, and I learned this from Kaylin Castell and Daniel Jamario, um, that you're experiencing every phase that the moon shows during the course of an entire month over the course of a minute or like 7 minutes, depending on the eclipse that you're experiencing. I should say it's actually longer than that. So when I say a minute or 7 minutes, like that'll be totality. But the experience of like the phases will be longer than that. And so I'm gonna get back to that. You know me, I'm guessing like one of my mantras is these many branches I'm called to climb all emanate from the same trunk, and I tend to be climbing 7 of them at once, and hopefully it would just bring it back in, and hopefully you can be with me. But I want to go over here to timeanddate.com. This is a really wonderful site for all sorts of things. One of them is they have a great kind of eclipse calculator here. So if you go sun, moon, and space, and then go down to eclipses, you can see there's an option here just for October 14th annular solar eclipse. And also for the total solar eclipse that comes April 2024. It's kind of a big deal in the United States, and this makes me feel that Time and Date's probably a United States website, because they're visible here, and it's rare in a sense for us to experience annular or total solar eclipses at this particular latitude on Earth. But anyway, I'm just going to go to eclipses. And then if you type in where you are, so I'm in Richmond, California, or I'm going to type in Berkeley because it's way more likely to show up. You have to be able to spell. It's one of the problems here. Berkeley. All right. Thanks for the help. Um, Here they're telling me that, hey, look, tomorrow at 9:19 a.m., there's an eclipse event. All right, so, and they're going to show me like the next eclipses, the next 25 eclipses. As you can see, I can change that drop down to any series of years. That's kind of interesting. Like I was born in this period and what was visible in this place where I now live, like in the year of my birth, that gets kind of interesting. And while I've lived here in California in different years, were eclipses visible in the space? Did I see any of them? Like, I love all of those questions. But what I want to do here is look at this. I think I can probably click on that. No. Where do we click? Let me go back to this next 25 and then we'll click here. All right, cool. Check this out with time and date. So they'll show me like this is the most maximum clouds allowing eclipse I will see. Sadly, it was super sunny yesterday. The clouds are now in, and this is telling me that overcast tomorrow. So I might have the clouds eclipse the eclipse. Something I'm very used to having lived in Seattle for 17 years. Anyway, if the clouds allow, this is my kind of local time frame. And check this out as I hit play here. It's going to show me the moon coming into occult the sun. It's crazy. It comes in from the top, right? So that's like a California view. All right. So like why is all that happening? Now, obviously in this animation they're keeping the sun just kind of dead center in there, right? Let's watch this thing again. Okay, but what is the sun actually doing? And there's another place we can go to witness this. But just dig that, there we have crescent. For those of us in the northern hemisphere experience, like in California where I reside, this crescent that we see here in light is the waxing crescent shape. Right? So then you get to kind of new moon, especially if you're near total eclipses, we won't be here. This last crescent that we saw is the waning crescent shape. And so intriguingly, no, I should say, and it's a little more difficult to see just because of what the moon's doing here. This is the waxing crescent shape. So while you get like all of the shapes that you see in the moon during the course of a month, you also get some shapes that we can never see in the moon, like this one. But the shapes that you see, there's like this accelerated portal, right? It's like a month's worth of phases during the course of hours. But we also see them backwards. So you see the shape of the waning crescent and then the waxing crescent last. So consider, for example, that just all of the sun would be like full moon, right? In the middle of the eclipse, especially in a total eclipse, it's like you get no sun, that's like new moon, right? So it goes like full new. So it goes from like fullness and then it reverse waxes in a way. And so the moral of this story that I'm having a hard time telling is basically you get this kind of time of acceleration, and in the great new light from the shadow, you kind of have to go back. I like to say around here, you got to retrograde back in memory lane a little bit, You got to clean up on aisle self a little bit where the pattern's been. By the way, a huge piece of that is celebrating your growth. Whether it's just something you've been doing for 2 days, or 2 months, 2 years, 2 lifetimes, right? So if some of the old patterns come in, you're like, yeah, like I'm matriculated, right? Like that kind of hand on your heart, if it's authentic, honest, like that's one of the great gifts of purging. Celebrating you, celebrating your life. Yeah. All right. Anyway, this is the experience. Here I am. This is 9 a.m. I think I must have the moon supersized a bit. Yeah. And here's a fun truth. We need to turn on, this is Stellarium astronomy software. We need to go topocentric. What happened there? All right, well, this is the measurement of the moon from the center of Earth. But, and this is parallax, depending on where on the surface of Earth we are, like the surface of Earth is either going to be closer to the moon than the center of the Earth or further away, depending on where you are. And, you know, like literally, if I go 30 miles that way, the moon's going to shift a little bit against the backdrop of stars. So eclipses, like you need to consider them with topocentric coordinates, that's surface, and parallax. It'd be another way to look at that. So now I get to see, oh, okay, there's an eclipse going down. Let's just zoom in. Well, you know what? I'm going to do this. Let me rewind. Here's 8 a.m. where I am. And actually, why don't we go somewhere where this eclipse is total? So I'm going to go to Eugene, Oregon. Who will have a football team eclipsed by the University of Washington Huskies tomorrow, shortly after this eclipse. All right, so let's just move through time here. And so some important things are happening. Actually, I want to rewind even more. This eclipse will be in the sign of Libra, so why not worship Venus a little bit? And look at how amazingly high Venus is above the ground. This, by the way, is especially true in the northern hemisphere. Why? Because in the northern hemisphere, the signs of Virgo and Libra rise very straight. Their angle of inclination is what the tradition calls straight. You could say steep. In the southern hemisphere, Virgo and Libra rise like this. The tradition calls them crooked. In the northern hemisphere, Pisces and Aries are the most crooked signs, whereas Virgo and Libra are the most straight signs, okay? So imagine Venus is elongated from the sun in such a way that in this model, Venus is at the tip of my middle finger, the tip of my ring finger, and if we were talking Saturn, maybe we'd go there. Anyway, and then the sun is like here at the base of my palm. All right. So if the sign's rising straight like this, you get much more altitude of Venus at sunrise than you would if the sign's rising more crooked like this, you see? So the same elongation, same phase angle, same distance, but based upon how that particular sign rises, which is a very local thing, your experience of Venus's altitude will greatly differ. Let me show this to you in Stellarium astronomy software. So again, here I'm in Eugene, Oregon, and I'm just going to stay in the same longitude on Earth, but I'm just going to go the same distance from the equator, but south of the equator, like that. All right, look at how this sign rises, right? See how like crooked it is? So let me rewind here back before sunrise. An important truth of the southern hemisphere is the sky goes the other way, right? The motion of the sun through the southern hemisphere sky is counterclockwise instead of clockwise. So look at here, Venus is, and her altitude at sunrise, like 44 south of the equator, is about 13, 14 degrees above the ground. Whereas north of the equator, like in Eugene, Oregon, at sunrise, Venus will be more like 40 degrees above the ground. Pretty cool, right? So by the way, why I believe Venus is said to fall in the sign of Virgo. Because if you go like day by day, let me just show you that here. Oh, wrong button. You? Okay. Watch Venus. I need to keep the sun selected So I can just go sunset, sunrise to sunrise like this. But look at how Venus is like falling in the sky. All right, and in a sense, that happens anytime Venus is a morning star. But notice now in the northern hemisphere, here's Venus in the sign of Capricorn, and it's like moving more diagonally, right? Whereas if I go today and here's sunrise tomorrow, eclipse is about to happen, right? Venus just watching like this next week. What button were you? This one. See how Venus is like kind of, I mean, she's actually moving a little sideways there, which is cool. So like so much goes into that. All right. Anyway, Venus in Pisces, I feel her exaltation there has to do with our evening star experience of Pisces, because that's where Venus will be most high above the ground as an evening star. And if you know traditional astrology, you'll know Venus is said to be the benefic of the night sect, which means after sunset, you see? All right, anyway, back to now, and sunrise tomorrow in Eugene, Oregon. All right, so notice that the moon rose before the sun. I'll rewind just a little bit and prove that to you. All right, so this is one of the coolest things about eclipses. And you don't need the sun to do this. You can just follow the moon any night, but this is the only time you can, well, yeah, it's kind of the only time you can really do it by day. You can do this with moon occulting Venus in the daytime sky, or with a telescope, other planets as well. But when the moon occults the sun, right, this amazing thing happens where you really get to see how the chart goes both ways, right? So the signs, let me kind of put this on a chart. So this motion through the signs, of course, is like Libra to Scorpio to Sagittarius to Capricorn to Aquarius. That's the same motion by which the signs rise, or the same order, right? So Scorpio is going to rise after Libra, Sagittarius will rise after Scorpio, right? But importantly, the motion through the signs, which we call the secondary motion, is counterclockwise in the chart. Whereas the motion through the houses, that's clockwise in the chart. And that models, by the way, the northern hemisphere's sky experience. All right. So here we are, the moon in an earlier degree of Libra, therefore following Mercury in an even earlier degree to the ascendant, but preceding the sun to the ascendant. But watch what happens, because the moon moves much faster through the zodiac than the sun. The moon gets around in a month, the sun in a year, right? As together they rise, the moon is also passing the sun by. Yeah. The timing here is going to look different than it does in Stellarium, even if I had it cast for Richmond, California, because this chart is geocentric, Earth center versus topocentric. I could change that, by the way, by, this is Astro Gold software, turning on the parallax moon. But let's not worry about all that right now. I know y'all want to get to the astrology of the thing. For me, this is all part of it. So I'm going to try to like bring this into a bit of a transmission about what this eclipse might mean. All right. And very importantly, like, you get to experience when you watch an eclipse like this, how the chart goes both ways. Because while together, the moon and the sun are moving from the east to the west, right? Rise to the rest. The moon will be passing the sun by in the other direction. And it's what creates this experience of the phases going backwards. And it's just it's a miracle to behold. I'll say important things that I've learned by watching eclipses is that, moon and sun are the same size in our sky, which for me is this actual profound thing. And that moon is closer to us than the sun is. So, I learned that in school, that's fine, but it's another thing to like see it in the sky. And what does it mean? Well, what is the moon and what is the sun? And from my point of view, the sun is our local representative of the one only thing that ever was, is, and will be. It's the hole in the veil where the one light shines through. This is true of all stars, but the sun is the big one because it's the one that we're closest to. For me, the moon, which will never reflect sunlight to Earth in the same way twice, and will never in any particular moment reflect the sunlight to one place on Earth in the same way it does to another place on Earth. The moon is a unique reflection of the one only light. And for me, this is what a soul is. So subjective terms, but I use the term spirit for sun, which I mean to imply the one thing that ever was, is, and will be, the monad, the one. And that moon is the adaptation, the translation, or the reflection of that one light, not some division of it that's impossible, but that the moon's incarnational role is to reflect that one light in a unique way that will never repeat. That's a soul who embodies here in matter. Why? Because in this place, with the appearance of time and space, we can grow. Spirit is all things, it is everything. It's not all things, it is the thing. You see? So it can't grow. Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll leave the cosmology and the astronomy there for now. Just want to say that, during the eclipse tomorrow, and importantly, we do measure eclipses not from the surface of the earth where we live and breathe and can witness these heavenly happenings, but rather from the center of the earth where we are all one. Even if you can't see it, it doesn't mean you don't be it. Like whether it's clouds that are here to occult your view of the occultation, or you're simply in a place on Earth like southern Chile where you can't see the eclipse even though the sun is in your sky because of parallax, or if you're in, I don't know, India, well, about Palestine, right? And you can't see the eclipse because it's nighttime in this particular eclipse. Yeah. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean you don't be it. And doesn't it feel right now like peace is being eclipsed? Harmony is being eclipsed, right? What is Libra? So here I have this eclipse cast for Richmond, California. Well, Sagittarius will be rising. I'm going to go more houseless by just turning this into the so-called natural zodiac. This point, the Pisces Aries cusp of the tropical zodiac is due east of Earth. It works like a global ascendant, all right? So I'm certainly not an astrologer that will tell you that like Libra is the seventh sign, because I was born with Gemini rising. Libra is my fifth, all right? And I'm going to do some work around that tomorrow. In fact, I have been doing some work around that in many ways. But as far as Earth is concerned, like our entire planet, the tropical signs are Earth's houses. And there is something in that Libra does have a general global seventhness. And so something about relation, our relations. And Libra, as we know as well, this realm of Venus where we're talking about harmony and peace and the like, yes? What's the difference between Libra Venus, where we have the solar eclipse, and Taurus Venus, where we have the lunar eclipse? What would you say? For those of you who are here on the Zoom, I'd love to read what you would have to say about Libra Venus versus Taurus Venus. And maybe if this feels a little bit more safe, I'm not going to read off folks' names, right? Just like see what comes in from y'all. Can I open the chat? Oh, I might have made it so you can't chat. I'm changing that now. All right. Yeah, sorry for that. It has so far been set so you can't write anything at Zoom. That's changed. Actually, can somebody test that for me now? And maybe test it by saying what you feel, Libra Venus. how Libra Venus differs from Taurus Venus. I'm going to look at the YouTube comment stream as well. Somebody wrote, I just gained more respect for you just because you said, I don't know. One of my most common phrases. So thanks for that, Manny's World. And I guess I could earn a lot of your respect because there are things that I can't even know, right? Even as I'm speaking about spirit and soul, I know I can't know and I won't know. Yeah. Um, well, so somebody wrote Taurus feels heavier. I'd love to hear why. Um, that's actually kind of a common theme here, which is interesting. Um, Libra feels like other, Taurus feels like self, pulling in Venus to self. Thanks for that. So Taurus feels heavier. Light-hearted Libra, deeply felt Taurus. Um, Libra Venus is relational, and Taurus Venus is sensual. Yeah, I like that. That's how I feel it as well. External embodied, right? So I imagine, well, I know that this is saying like Libra external, Taurus embodied. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, some would look at that as kind of like the diurnal nature of Libra, an air sign, and the nocturnal nature of Taurus as an earth sign. Yeah. We might even say if we take their elemental images further, maybe Libra has something more to do about the air, the voice, thought, um, and Taurus more about the body, right? Mind and body, mind. A transactional quality for Libra we're hearing here. The give and exchange is so fast sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it happens even before it happens, which is kind of like eclipse magic too. All right, well, thanks so much for those offerings, friends, and feel free to keep them coming in. I might not be able to keep up with all of them. It was very not Libra for me to be the only one speaking here, is it? Right? And so let's change that shortly also. But especially to have like your ability to chat with one another like muted. Huh. That sounds like signs of our times. Libra feels like responsibility with love, and Taurus feels like indulgence. Um, yeah, you know it's weird to me, and it's just probably just my charge, but I bet you this happened for some others too. That kind of sounded like Libra good, Taurus bad, and I know that that's not what was being said there, but I'm receiving it in that way, and it feels like something that I'm going to get to work on actually in this eclipse season personally, right? Although, Gemini rising, Gemini moon, I tend to shy away from that responsibility word also. Um, yeah, I mean, what is Venus is this really cool question, right? Um, there are other languages that offer many different words for love. Yeah. And I think that's an important thing for us to remember. What is that sensual, embodied Epicurean love? Epicurus is a word that Daniel Jamario, one of my first teachers, utilizes for the Taurus Mystery School, as he so beautifully calls it, right? And so some phrases that have come through for me is like, beauty is a spiritual practice. I think that's good, like Taurus, Jupiter reminder at this time, especially. Um, but that, like, some call it stubborn. But the Taurus in me likes to order the same thing at the restaurant every time because I know it's like what turns me on. It just like tastes good, and so there's like a little less adventure in it because it's just like so deeply connected to pleasure. There's something in Taurus that really has like deep body memory. Right. So how do I like to be touched? What do I like to smell? Like how can I really appreciate, especially in times of safety? the ability to be slow, right? They call it Taurus bull. I always prefer the image of the cow with seven stomachs and the idea of slowing down. A poem through Taurus that came for me is, release the rat race and tune into the grace of Earth's pace by practicing in this moment, slowing, embodiment, beauty, sensuality. Yeah, these senses. Libra does have this othership calling, right? So when Venus, and I think it's gotten a little too like pigeonholed or whatever you would say, right? But when we think of Venus as like a goddess of love, it's like, what love? Right? Like loving life, loving to be touched, loving music, loving to dance, right? Or loving to dance with another, even through the really challenging times or whatever. That Libra piece that feels very relational has that kind of goddess of relationship feeling. Somewhere here, and I'm missing now where, but we heard about Saturn's exaltation in Libra. Yeah, for me, the Saturn association with Libra feels a little bit more like the balance, equality, leading, right? Look at the fifth of Libra. You go Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. Aquarius is the fifth of Libra. In other words, Aquarius is the child of Libra. I'm not saying immature or something, but Libra, if we do Libra, right, we give birth to Aquarius, right? Equality births equanimity. Do you see that? Relationship births community. Yeah. But Saturn feels like that one that's more like the Libra justice, the balance. Yeah. Where Venus feels more like that Libra, like I want to see the world through your eyes. Will you see the world through mine? I'll walk in your shoes, right? I want to be noticed. I'll come alive when seen by the other. Yeah, there's this deep kind of othership piece to Libra. And Taurus, like, is definitely better honored when there's another around too. But it's more about like, yeah, what I'm feeling, like my senses. Yeah. I like to say this with the fixed signs, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. Fix yourself to fix the world. Where with the cardinal signs, I see them as less kind of self-interested. I don't mean that to be selfish. Selfness will set the world free. But that the cardinal signs have more of an other focus, and that's probably especially true for, well, maybe more true for Cancer than Libra, but with Libra, it's tending to seek a non-hierarchical kind of equal partnering, whether in intimate relationship, business partnership, whatever. And Cancer is a little bit more like I'm the mommy, daddy, right, for my baby here. Now, in the Pisces world, where Venus is said to be exalted, this is more like that love called agape. All the world's children are my children. In fact, they are me, right? We are one, you see? I mean, interestingly, in the Libra map, right? So just consider a Libra rising chart. Where do you find Pisces? If Libra is rising, then Aries is setting, and Pisces does everything just before Aries, all right? So in the Libra map, Pisces is the sixth. Libra is a relationship path. Pisces makes Libra sick. Now, there's great healing here too, but that's kind of like a little joke, not joke. Why would Pisces make Libra sick? If we want to relate, we can't believe we are all one. There is no relationship with only one thing. This is why the miracle of soul has happened. Spirit considered itself. What happens when you consider yourself? What happens when perhaps like me, are your own worst critic or best critic at times, right? Who are you looking at? Who's doing the looking when you have a good look at yourself, right? What are the relationship between those not two? That's the three. Also, get another opinion. So, fortunately, there are other souls, there are other reflections of the one only thing. All right. So it's a profound opportunity. You know, when we have a new moon in Libra, you have two potentials for the full moon. One is a Libra new moon followed by an Aries full moon. You might think that's standard, but the sun doesn't stop moving through our zodiac because the earth doesn't stop orbiting, right? So the other option, and the only other option, is this: Libra new moon followed by Taurus full moon. And only Mars and Venus, according to the kind of cosmo code of ancient astrology, have homes, domiciles, signs, to use the modern term rulership, don't like it, um, that are quincunx to one another. And that's 150 degrees, or past the 180 to the next sign, so 210 degrees. And therefore, only Mars and Libra, interestingly, can experience or offer their assistance in Earth's experience of a new moon and a full moon in their signs. All right, so that was not poetic and still not descriptive, right? So let me do better, and I'll do this by example. An Aries new moon is either followed by a Libra full moon or by a Scorpio full moon. In fact, this year of 2023, if you're into that whole Gregorian trip, we had both. We've had two Aries new moons. We had one cycle of Aries new moon, Libra full moon. Then we had Aries new moon, which is our last solar eclipse, followed by a Scorpio full moon, right? And if we do this domicile thing, Mars, right? Brandon, just seeing that you're here. Welcome. Glad you're here, and cool to hear that you're heading to see the eclipse in Utah. Good on you. Venus is the only other planet who can assist the earthling experience of a new moon followed by a full moon in her signs, in her homes. And here we go, Libra, Taurus, which is why I'm speaking so much about Venus. Not only because I'm about to turn a multiple of 8 in 10 days, and therefore I'm in a Venus return cycle, as many of you also are, but a Libra new moon, Taurus full moon. So a question is, what's up with Venus? And it's also bringing in Pisces. Because why not also speak about this place where Venus is said to be exalted? And how amazing that through so-called mixed reception or generosity, we get these connections to a Libra new moon with Taurus, with Pisces, right? Now, Venus is not in Libra. So when Venus heads to Libra, which is going to be a bit, let me show you when that is. Thanks to Astro Gold software for making this so easy. Venus doesn't ingress Libra until November 8th. Okay. Well, look at where the moon is in Virgo at the time, and still sextile Sun. All right. In other words, this is about 10 days before the following new moon, which will be the Scorpio new moon here on November 13th. I said 10 days, 5 days. Sorry, 5 days for a sextile. The moon sun thing changes by about 12 degrees per day. Sextile about 60 degrees divided by 12, 5. All right. I think you saw me being like, wait, that's wrong. Anyway, so importantly, Venus will ingress Libra during this lunation. This lunation, which is Libra solar eclipse, right? Venus is home, followed by Taurus lunar eclipse, Venus's other home, right? Venus will be in Virgo for both of those events, but Venus will ingress Libra right before they are done. Now, when she does, she will quickly quincunx Saturn in Pisces, all right? She will, during her time in Libra, and this won't happen until after the Scorpio new moon, quincunx Neptune in Pisces. she will also have a quincunx with Jupiter in Taurus. So traditionally, Jupiter, right, in rules Pisces. Modern astrology sees that as a Neptunian thing, but anyway, we see this like very important connection of like strong Venus at this time. Now, are you seeing peace when you turn on the news? And again, I will just say that if you want to bring balance to the truth that you are not, and there is so much pain in this world, and there, sadly, there's so much destruction that we're not even hearing about. And, and I'll say like a significant lack of Libra, no intention for negotiation. Do you feel that? Like there is a Libra-lessness happening on the world stage, and it has been happening. Yeah. How do we get that back? And one way we bring that balance, I suggest, or I experience, is just in my own life, living balanced, attempting to live more balanced, and really being in a deep gratitude experience for peace. Yeah, like when I go experience the eclipse tomorrow and I feel safe sitting under that shadow event, much of my prayer will be, may all beings experience such safety, such trust, such peace. All right. So I think just from a global perspective, probably peace is a great place for and a necessary place for us to go with Libra right now. And for me, in the power of prayer, that's not like there is no peace because we suck, right? Um, it's like I bring peace because I am beautiful. You know what I mean? We are peace. We are loved. We are guided. We are directed. We will see, and having some faith. So maybe you're hearing like a lot of Neptune in this, and I'm seeing some alignment there. I'm going to go to a little astro grid to show some interesting things. And mostly this, all right, which is that while Moon, Sun, right, are in a neighboring sign to Virgo, Venus at this time. For one thing, there's said to be a connection between Virgo and Libra when Venus is in Virgo and Mercury's in Libra, because then we have what traditionally is called a mutual reception in signs. Yeah, since Mercury will be in Venus's home of Libra, while Venus is in Mercury's home of Virgo, and the relationship between the two of them might be very interesting to investigate. I'm noticing they're about 42 degrees away. But the other thing is that Moon and Sun during the conjunction will be what's called antischia or contra-antischia, contra-antitia, some will call this, with Venus. And basically, they are just as far south of Earth's equator at the time of the eclipse as Venus is north of Earth's equator. All right. So hopefully I can show that to you here. You can't even see the moon in this map actually occulted by the sun, which is interesting. But look, the moon is closer to Earth, which is beneath this thing, right? We're looking from heaven here, right? So from heaven, this is sun, moon, Earth. Makes sense, yes? From Utah, it's Utah, moon, sun. Solar eclipse, yeah? Well, just notice that the moon and the sun are the same distance south of Earth's equator as Venus is north of Earth's equator at this time. Thank you, astrocartography and zenith points. There's many other ways to show that, but I'll just say this, like this connection through the mutual reception of Mercury and Venus, or through the contra-antitia of the new moon, the solar eclipse, and Venus. This offers a powerful link between Virgo and Libra. Do you want peace? Practice. Do you want harmony? What is your relationship with the sacred? Yeah. We could go on and on like that, and I imagine things like that will probably come to life when we look at individual charts. Venus has recently cleared her opposition with Saturn. She received the moon just a few days ago when opposite Saturn, which was an interesting happening. Venus is applying to trine Jupiter. And you might notice some like different colored lines here on this chart than you're used to looking at. And I'm going to get right back to that. I just want to honor this wedge that's here, which is Venus, Mars, Saturn. Now Mars has already perfected a trine with Saturn as well. Venus is separating not only from Saturn, but from a sextile with Mars. Actually, I'm called to just look at Venus, sextile, Mars. Yeah, March 11th, 2023. So how is that possible? Let me look right now. And I'm going to go back in time. And the answer is retrogrades. So Venus comes back. Let me just go Venus retrograde. Venus stationed retrograde on September 3rd. Sorry, stationed direct after 42 days of retrograde travel on September 3rd, 2023, here at 12:12 Leo with Mars at 4 Libra. So there was not a sextile there. All right. Venus then picking up speed. And we get to this point where it seems like this sextile will perfect, and it didn't. Because Venus then starts moving faster than Mars. I mean, they got so close to this that as I'm saying Venus is separating from the sextile. It's like separating from the sextile that never happened. So what's the point of that? It's like there's this intention for a peace. There's this intention for an agreement between the two of them. And what I'm doing here is kind of looking for their midpoint, the Venus-Mars midpoint. It's like very close to 0 Libra. No, it's here-ish. And they have this kind of agreement in like the nocturnal nature of their signs, which are actually traditionally said to be preferred for Venus and Mars by sect. But they're not like currently in like a geometrical relationship, or just like not a perfect. It's like for Virgo, it's like it's not there. For Scorpio, maybe. That's hopefully going to find its way back in. I don't know much more to do with that right now. I will say in some regards, like, how do we balance Venus and Mars? And Mars at this time is from the tradition's point of view, like the most Martian degree of the zodiac. So even during it's a Libra event, Mars is like super powered at this time, especially in places where the sun has set and Mars has not yet, where Mars will also have dignity by sect. I want to look to where those places are on Earth. And the answer is the sun is setting here, Mars is setting here. So very few places, Portugal, Maine, a little bit of Ireland down here through places in Western Africa. But Mars in this degree of the zodiac is said to be in his own face, decan, 10-degree division. Also in his own bounds or terms. These are these asymmetric divisions of the signs. These particular shown are the so-called Egyptian terms. All right, so you just see Mars, Mars, and Scorpio itself, Mars, right? So I think we're experiencing a little bit more of that. And what does the chart invite for me? On one level, it's this. Music teaches tension and release, which helps us understand a little bit more about astrology and life. So a lot of tension happening now. where do we find the release? And when we do, will we understand that that sweet release is experienced in that way as a gift of the tension that preceded it? We don't want to fall prey to the idea of no pain, no gain. But the truth is, we do grow through what we go through. And when there is tension in the air, when the depression comes, whatever it may be, right? If we honor that this is a path to something more beautiful, then that thing can be so much more beautiful. And so I'm always looking in times of tension. And eclipse, like, is a tense thing, but it brings light. I'm looking for, like, where are release points in the chart. And so one thing that I'm very interested in this chart itself, and it's been this way for some time, it's like strong Venus. I was really seeing that in August with the Leo new moon and the Leo Venus cycle that started. But here it's like Libra, it's a Pisces, Taurus. Yeah. And these cues, these are fifths of the zodiac, that Jupiter and Saturn are now quintile. 9 arc minutes away from a perfect quintile, which is 1/5 of the wheel, 72 degrees at the time of the Libra solar eclipse tomorrow. Mercury and Uranus, biquintile, within a degree. So that's 2/5 of a circle, 144 degrees. Mars and Neptune, I would suggest maybe most importantly, 8 arc minutes from a perfect biquintile. By the way, these things will show themselves in a fifth harmonic chart for those of you who are starting to step into the harmonic trip. Mercury, Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Neptune. The trine between Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars, Neptune in the fifth harmonic chart speaks of a conjunction in a 15th harmonic chart. I don't want to go much further than that. I'm interested in Venus and Pluto, close here as well. Anyway, the moral of this story, it's the wrong way to say it. The point I'm trying to find my way to is be creative personally and wish for a more creative approach culturally. All right, Mars and Scorpio, like there is strength, power, control dynamics there, right? But the depth of the authentic emotion and expression of the emotional experience, feelings, the power of feelings, right? Connecting creatively in with just like a wish for oneness, peace, smooth seas, bringing like the negotiating mind. This is Mercury, very importantly, who's now behind the sun, so far from us, under the beams. It's not a rarity for Mercury, but Mercury's exploring hidden things that can't be seen. He's going to places we could never go unless we send a probe, right? There's a willingness for consciousness of balance, harmony, peace. I would like to see some like negotiation, right? That's looking at like dynamic, powerful, perhaps even painful and tragic, like trauma signatures in the earth, in the body, and like bringing peace out of that. So on an individual level, that can speak to our health, right? And finding greater health in relationships. If you're in a partnership, like this eclipse, I think offers a really powerful window for learning more about your partner's sensual needs, right? So I'm not only talking sexuality there, right? I'm not talking that, but what helps you feel safe? What helps you feel honored? What helps you rest? Yeah. What are the things that really take you out? How can I assist with that? Are there things that I do that are kind of consistently like triggering you or pushing you? Like, how can I help with that? You see? So, like, talk to yourself about that. If there's partnership in your world, whether intimate, mate experience, whatever, business experience, who are you in bed with, as they say, right? Like, this is a really great opportunity to find kind of creative places. And by the way, the weird should be super stimulated. One of the places I see that is in these strong septiles, sevenths. Right? The truth is you can't divide a circle by seven. You get an endless number. And sevens work like that. They're weird. It's the world behind the world. It's not only like, weird traumatic shocks, but it's also miracles. Miracles like an eclipse. And notice, let me show you these, right? So like we have this really strong Mercury, Jupiter, triseptile. That's 3/7. This is a seventh of the circle. All right, but don't be deceived. That six is a 5 7 1 4 2 8 5 7 1 4 2 8 5 7 1 4 2 8 until the cows come home, and they won't. It's an endless thing. It's not irrational. I just used a ratio to describe it, 360 over 7, right? But 7 is the first number that cannot divide the circle, cannot divide a sign equally as well. And sevens are like that. But they offer innovation. Yeah. And they're super strong. Look at Venus, Uranus, a planet that we often associate with innovation. The eclipse with Neptune, with Lilith. All right. You're also seeing some strong nines in this chart, noviles. All right. So I have this set for very like tight aspects, but like if I loosen them up a little bit, we're going to see, no, we're not. I see Mercury, Venus in a novile now too. Especially, well, a little bit more last week. But the eclipse with Jupiter, Mercury and Venus with Neptune forming this like novile, it's like a triangle. The noviles, they have deep soul, right? So, and there's a lot of these like kind of weird aspects in this group. Like again, like the setting here at Astro Gold software that I created, I'm only looking at aspects within 1 degree. These are all really strong, all right? And what's the point of the thing? It's like weird shit is happening, chaotic, turbulent, perhaps quite traumatic energy. Yeah. Be creative in your response to bring peace. And pray for more creative peace. When I say pray, I'm talking like tell. Like for me, this is a big piece of Mars. It's like go out and do that thing. All right. A quicker look at yeah, no, one more thing. So if you've come in most recently, I said earlier, I'll probably be hugging a tree tomorrow. Probably many of them. I think this is very important to be in the body, to really like in a deep space of prayerful gratitude, love that you have health, that you have the embodied experience, that you can make love and eat, right? And obviously that brings its challenges, and what a gift that is too, even when it's awful and difficult. Yeah. When there is death in the air, let us honor balance by maybe first contemplate, well, maybe I'll say secondly, contemplating what happens after death. Is death actually the birth of something else? But also like very much celebrating life. This is a wonderful eclipse to dance beneath, and I'm going to try to remember that tomorrow. If you're worried about the future of the earth, well, love the tree. Do you know what I mean? Like really celebrate Earth's beauty. That will help Earth herself regenerate. This is the power of your consciousness. And that love, I would suggest, especially with strong Taurus like this and with a coming lunar eclipse, probably best expressed through touch. So in this lunar eclipse, we have some interesting images, right? Now, Mercury is on the other side of the sun. He's very strongly applying to Mars. I wouldn't expect peace this month. I mean on the world stage. And it is my practice that the more peace that we can do here, right, the more healthy outlets we can also find for our anger or angst, etc., right, the more we can find inner balance. But we just have to be conscious, present. Some of us like watching football games. It's super violent. Can you watch yourself watch that? So much body here. And really like the sacred body and the body of the sacred. For me, yeah, that's like I always like to try to find little retrograde statements about how to practice with the experience of a moment or even like a month, like an eclipse season. Like, what did I just say? The sacred of the body and the body of the sacred. It's good. There's got to be a better way to say it than that. But that's kind of where I'm starting. All right. We're going to see stubborn battles of will that seem absolutely opposite to the possibility of harmony as a hopefully welcome test to practice tolerance, acceptance, balance, harmony, peace in our own lives as not only like a conscious experiment, but as an embodied practice. So, how does this align for people? And, I think what I'm going to do is really, unless charts come in where we have a super strong focus here at like 5 Scorpio Taurus, like in this lunar eclipse degree, maybe I'll do things like this where I'll just put charts in between. Like I'll start with this one. I probably will give a little bit more attention to this annular solar eclipse than to the partial lunar eclipse. I do want to just take us back to some of those online resources for exploring eclipse things. So we'll go back to moonblink.info here, so I want to explore some of the eclipse cycles with you too. But I just want to see where this partial lunar eclipse of October 28th, 2023 is visible. Look at how partial it is. All right, only this much of the moon will pass through the shadow of Earth. I should say the umbra of Earth, which is shown here in red. The rest is gray. It's called the penumbra. And I don't know, I can never personally like see the effect of moon moving through the penumbra. It just looks like a full moon to me. But we will have that little bit of slice taken out, and this will be visible. Oh, that's an interesting place given the signs of the like times for this to be most seen and most maximum. Yeah, but this is most maximum. Now every full moon matters, right? Some would say that because it's a very partial lunar eclipse, like it will have less total effect as a total lunar eclipse would be. Jury's kind of out, right? So, like, I have rules that I've studied in that regard, but none that I've come to believe in yet. And for me, the fact that we kind of can't know is part of what makes it so exciting. All right. So, this is my nativity. I'm not going to turn this too much into a reading for me, but just to show you a few things of like how I go about this. One of like the first place I might look is all right, the solar eclipse is at 21 Libra. Do you have anything at 21 Libra? Right? Oh, if Mercury's kind of close, the part of fortune's kind of close. Is it close enough? Like, it's up to you. I see that Mars is near the Sun Uranus conjunction and squaring Saturn during the time of the eclipse. It's a very important thing to do with eclipses, right? Don't look only at the eclipse degree. What other things are happening? How is this moment, this like acupuncture moment, stimulating longer things that are happening, like Uranus transiting a node? This eclipse for me is most aligned by degree, right? In a quincunx with the nodes or in conjunct Semi-sextile with the north node in conjunct, quincunx with the south node in conjunct. So there's some hidden things in regards to like soul, some of that's being stimulated here, and gosh, that's been my experience. I mean, I'm looking at Jupiter trining Venus. There's a solar return coming up. But it's opposite Jupiter. Jupiter, who in this chart rules the 10th whole sign, and in a cusp of the 11th in a quadrant chart like a Placidus chart, and rules the 7th. So Libra aside, what's going on with relationships, you know? How can you engage with the spirit of the other, etc. Eclipses themselves, let me try to do this in a different way. Eclipses belong to families. I'm going to show this here at Moonblink. So this solar eclipse, October 14, 2023, belongs to, as the astronomers call it, Solar Saros Series 134. 71 eclipses over the course of 1,262 years. All right. The frequency of the dragon's heartbeat is 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. So this one started in the 13th century. It first became total in the 15th century here. It's been hybrids, which means some places see total, some places see annular since the late 16th century, and then fully annular since 1861. Interesting timings here. We can click here at moonblink.info and see where on Earth those particular eclipses were most visible. What I want to show you in this case is that an eclipse of the same family came around 18 years ago, will come around 18 years from now. 36 years ago, 54 years ago, the 18s. But very importantly, 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. Now the 8 hours bit takes it a third of the way around the globe because the globe spins in 24 hours, 8 times 3. All right, so the next time we see one of these things of this same family, it's over here a third of the way around the globe. And then the next time, another third here in 2059, okay? And then the next time, another third, which means back to, you know, where we started, as you can see. All right. So that might say, well, what happened 54 years ago? 3 of these Saros periods, 18, 18, 18, 54 years, because that's when this eclipse was last visible in the States. And the answer, by the way, is September 11th, 1969. What kind of world events were happening in 1969 regarding peace? And why regarding peace? Because it's a Libra eclipse. Well, was it then? All right, so this is another very important piece here, is that the period of the Saros period is 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. So that 11 days moves it through the zodiac. Sun moves about 1 degree per day and about 11 degrees in 11 days. All right, so what is now October 14th will next time become October 25th. When I see that, I'm like, oh, all right, because I'm born on October 24th. And was last around in 2005 on October 3rd. All right, so a little simple rule you can play is just subtract 11 degrees to see where in the zodiac the last eclipse of the same family arrived 18 years ago. Add 11 degrees to see where it will be next. What happens when we add 11 to 21? And the answer is usually 32, but not in astrology, right? In astrology, it's 2 of the next sign. In other words, it's exactly where Mars is at the time of this eclipse. What happens if we subtract 11 from 21? And the answer is 10, right? So I would encourage you not only to really hone in on 21 Libra in your chart, but look to 10 Libra. Look also to 2-ish Scorpio. Let's see if that math works. I'm going to go 18 years into the future and look for an eclipse There you go. I mean, in this case, exactly 2 degrees Scorpio in the super Martian zone. All right, let's go 18 years before now, back in 2005. A lot easier to work with the past than to work with the future, friends. But astrology helps us work by the future by seeing our history cycles, yes? So here, 10 degrees, 18 minutes Libra is where this eclipse family last shadowed Earth's zodiac. Some interesting things here too, like Uranus is currently transiting the degrees of the Venus-Mars opposition that held at that time of that Libra eclipse. Now, as I said before, you can either have a Libra new moon followed by a Taurus full moon in a case like this month, where the sun will move from Libra to Scorpio by the time the moon moves from conjunct to opposite, or you can have a Libra Aries new moon full moon. What was it that back then in 2005? And the answer was Libra Aries. Okay, it would have been this 10 degrees Libra solar eclipse. Looks like a annular solar eclipse, and by the way, of course it is, it's of the same family, followed by a lunar eclipse that then was in Aries. Interestingly, where the nodes of this eclipse are, right? It's like wheels within wheels, cycles within cycles. You know, Libra Aries, and of course we have Aries North Node now, Libra South Node. Maybe we're feeling strong Mars and Venus there. It is intriguing to see that in the last solar eclipse of this cycle in 2005, there was a very strong Venus-Mars opposition. Uranus is stimulating that zone of the zodiac now. Right? It's snapping us into some awareness. Look at Pluto transiting exactly where Chiron was then. Yeah, so when you look at eclipses of a family like this, you might get some hints around opportunities for change and shift and growth, often stimulated by images of challenge. I like seeing that back then. Jupiter was in Libra. Actually, kind of I was about to say I'm remembering that, but that's not true. I remember when Jupiter was next in Libra. I wasn't aware of astrology in my life at this point in 2005. Um, but look at how Jupiter then was where the node is now. And I mean, there is just this story of a wish for balance and peace. I mean, you know, I would be saying that, by the way, if the news wasn't blowing up the way it is right now, or if I wasn't in my own experience, personal experience, like having a hard time with balance, more on like a mental health level, I'd say, than a relational level at this moment, and like trying to like hold the light in time of like potential challenge, fear, and whatnot. I want to go too deep into it, but those are things like I don't need astrology to know like, okay, there's this really powerful thing happening. These are things that are happening in my life. These are things that I want to work on. Astrology helps me kind of like see where I want to focus in, and cycles really help with this too. Yes. So like when I look in my own chart, and I know my chart well, right? So, and I know how eclipse cycles work, as I just showed you, right? So I can see, oh, all right, like this thing at 21 Libra, it's opposite my Jupiter. Something about work, my 10th whole sign is Pisces. Something about relationships, my 7th sign is Sagittarius. Interesting. Libra's in my 5th house. Something about passion, fertility, creativity, children. I've been playing a ton of music lately, right? Or games. But I also see that with this eclipse at 21, that means 18 years ago it was at 10. Oh, it was right on my Pluto, Mercury. And that kind of like reminds me of the power to consciously go back and contemplate what was happening for me back then in 2005, and to see how that's moving to now. So this is a thing I call shadow pulsing, which is when you look at the particular degrees of an eclipse and rewind to the eclipse of the family that preceded it 18 years before, and then even look forward to the one that will come next in 18 years. Like this particular eclipse family 18 years ago in 2005 was at my Mercury Pluto conjunction, and it will in 18 years from now in 2041 the eclipse family will have moved into Scorpio and will be very close to my sun, in particular Uranus. Well, this helps me see that this particular eclipse at 21 Libra is super close to some midpoints for me, right? So if you don't know these dials, I'll just show you where 21 Libra is. This is Libra 180. It's opposite Aries 0. All right. This is 21 Libra. And I get to learn things like, well, that's my like moon midheaven midpoint. Well, what a good time to talk about eclipses. Like, all right, like that's my job. It's Mars midheaven. What do I do about that? You know, but I'm also looking for like the Mercury Sun and Mercury Uranus midpoints because I can just see in my eclipse cycle study that this eclipse is doing something like that in different dials, by the way. Like if you played with your cosmobiology or Uranian astrology, I'm going to see Saturn tied into this picture because I have a really strong Sun Saturn square in my chart, Uranus Saturn square, right? And Mercury's in that picture in a different way. And so this eclipse wants to like kind of stimulate some of my, I'll say Uranus Mercury innovative thought. I saw that interestingly in the biquintile between Mercury and Uranus in the eclipse chart itself, right? That's here. It's like not such a thick line in the chart because I have really strict criteria, but it's like Mercury, Uranus within a degree of a biquintile. Like that's strong. And again, I want that to be creative innovations in our kind of conscious attempt to find balance and harmony by exploring the hidden things. And maybe through the shocks and even traumas to Earth herself and to our Earth, which is the body. All right. Body embodiment technologies like fucking exercise, which I hate to have to say it like that, but it's like, dude, right? Unfortunately, that's something that I'm just starting to like try to make a practice in my life again. It's like so needed, and still like some challenges with that. When I look at the eclipse in my own chart too, it's like, oh, what is with this quincunx? Well, Uranus is transiting the south node and Jupiter's exploring this hidden place. I'm in a what's called a 12th house annual profection. And so there's things just kind of in hidden places. It's like, why won't I exercise? Like, why am I eating like this? Like, you know, those kinds of themes, right? And so can I bring that to the eclipse? Because the eclipse can bring light to shadow, right? Shadow isn't like what we know we need to change. It's what we don't know we should be changing. Yeah. And eclipses can bring that out. All right. So that's enough about me. Like there's much more I would say about this chart or any other chart, but let's look to another example here. I just want to stop the share for a second as I type in someone's birth data, and I'm using nicknames, but I want to check in with the chat real quick too, because I'm sure there's so much genius coming from y'all, and hopefully wherever you're watching this, whether presently or in a time that I perceive to be the future, you're able to check the chat as well. And YouTube, I will try to make it so that the live chat shows up. Um, cool. So like a lot of comments about personal charts, which is great. Maybe it's out of context now because I'm not sure when this was written, but I read switching up the baggage. Yeah, good idea. Always, right? Venus orbit is cool. Flip it and send it back. Creates a balancing effect. I'm gonna have to work with that. I appreciate that invitation. Um, Happy birthday. Hey, thanks, Astral Omens. I appreciate that. All right, cool. And so happy you made it live. I'm happy to make it as well. All right. Lunar eclipse and my Mars return. Yeah. Thanks for the energy I'm bringing to this. Thanks for the energy you are bringing to this. Okay, cool. Well, let's get into some personal charts. Here's the rules, y'all. You got to be in the Zoom space because I'm going to promote you to, well, I'm going to do what I have to do so you can come on, share your camera, share your microphone. All right. So I'm going to call out names, I think in the order in which they were put in. And I am going to ask you out loud if you are willing to share your mic and camera. If you are, please write yes in the Zoom chat and then I'll bring you up. So let me find. And by the way, friends, I have like 30 charts already entered, so I'm not going to be able to do that many. We'll probably do, I don't know, 5 or so. We'll see. But I can't take any new ones. Sorry to say that. All right. So nickname Clark. Born in White Plains, New York. Will you please type in the chat if you're willing to come on screen and to share your camera and your mic and to like have a conversation as we look at your chart together? If not, I think it's just kind of bad TV. I got a sure there. Awesome. You are welcome, by the way, to change your name here in Zoom to a nickname if you'd like. Actually, why don't you just tell me here in the chat, would you like to keep your regular name or for me to bring in the chart with this nickname? I guess type name or nickname. Okay, cool. Right on. So let me do what I need to do. Finding you here. All right, so Kelly, you will have just received an invitation to be a panelist. Okay, now you are that, and now I push some other buttons. Okay, so now you should be able to share your camera and your mic. Maybe only your microphone? That seems annoying. Kelly, will you try unmuting yourself and saying a thing?
Yeah, sorry. Hey,
Hey, what's up?
1 second.
Okay. I'm just typing in your birth data. I'm wondering if I maybe like set this. Oh no, cool. There you are. Hi, Kelly.
Hey,
It's nice to see you. How you feeling?
good.
It's been a
Lots of
bit. Last
movement.
I talked to you, you had like just moved, so that's how long it's been.
Well, I'm moving again. So there you
Okay.
go.
Interesting. I wonder if we'll
Yeah,
see some of that. Because how long have you been in the place?
about 10 months.
Yeah, and here we have an eclipse in your fourth
Yeah.
of home and roots and the like. All right, cool. Like I said before, like I don't want to push, but what happened? Because I thought I remembered you being like really stoked about the new spot.
It's a great spot. And then, finances and stuff. So I'm going to join a community house, change it up.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We- Nice. With friends, people you already know, or new peeps, or what?
New people. So acquaintances in dance circle vibe.
Right on. By the way, the person who wrote Clark for their nickname is not you, and I'll get to you next. Sorry, I selected the wrong Kelly. The other Kelly, or well, now I just gave away your name. Everything's falling apart here. Anyway, Kelly, thanks for offering an opportunity to look at your chart. I have it on the screen. Do you want to share like any particular intentions you have for this eclipse, or like what you've dreamed into, or how you're seeing it align for you?
There's a lot going on in Libra. And so a lot of new insights with my relationships and home and how I'm relating to others and energy, just in general.
How's work going?
It's so chill. which is great. Not even on my mind. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, because when we have this Libra solar eclipse, it's not always this way, but our last solar eclipse was in Aries, and Kelly has was born with Cancer rising, so Aries is the 10th whole sign of like career, vocation, legacy, your legend, as I like to say, and then Libra is like home, roots, depths, and a good chart example here because such a Libra devotion. So I just need to finish typing to another person there, and let's get your chart on the screen. Kelly, thanks so much for playing. Very much appreciate it. Um, all right, so again, like I just opened this chart, and I'll just say this, like for me, like I have a lot of methods, right, and they change. But the first thing I always want to do before I get to like the lines and the rules and the measurable things is just be immeasurable. I believe one of the great gifts of astrology is that like helps our intuitive self see. And so when I open a chart, like even though I'm like, all right, where's this eclipse? The first thing I saw is like, oh, well, Pluto's at the sun. And then I saw, oh, Neptune's at the midheaven. All right. Now, if you know like the pace of these planets and what they've done, like this Pluto, while Pluto's very close to the sun still, like Pluto moves so slowly, and Pluto's already kind of done that dance, and we know Pluto's moved into Aquarius, and he's got some unfinished business in Capricorn. It doesn't mean there's not like stimulants there, especially since Sun square Pluto in the natal chart, right? So Pluto's stimulating that whole thing. Um, but in a way, like this transit's gone down. All right. Neptune at the midheaven, like very much still alive. Okay. So there's things of like dreaming into like how I give my energy to the peeps, right? And like Neptune and Pluto always kind of, well, don't catch my eyes because we can't see them, but catch my inner eye, I guess, because they just they move slowly. Their transits are rare in that sense. Neptune squaring Neptune almost exactly during this eclipse time. And with Neptune in the natal sixth, Neptune transiting the midheaven, Neptune squares your midheaven in your IC in your natal chart. I mean, there's something about on the beautiful side, like the dreams of like how I plug in and where I'm coming from and like where I'm rooted, you know? And then on the challenging side with Neptune, always like the confusion delusions around that stuff, right? Where am I? Where do I really come from? Is that real? Can I get away from some of that stuff? Like, what am I
So
supposed
much
to be doing?
delusion. It's been great.
Okay, nice. But you're talking to the right cat because I'm a champion of that stuff. Yeah, and as I said before, like the previous eclipse, it was in that last degree of Aries, so it's right here in the 10th house at the top of the chart. So there's just like a lot of real world things happening for you, right? It's like 7th house, 10th house, 4th house. It's like how I relate, how I like give my gifts, how do I make a loving, as I like to say, what's my job, and then like where am I coming from, where am I living, where am I grounded, where do I feel safe in that. Jupiter and Uranus, I think, will really celebrate what you just shared about moving into more of a community living experience. Because there's strong like 11th house stuff happening. So, I mean, I always know you to be a very community oriented person. There's probably some summer festivals coming up and whatnot. But yeah, to like really be able to do that Taurus and this Libra, it's an interesting thing in the Cancer dynamic, right? Where at least by whole sign, the fourth and the 11th are connected through Venus. Um, all right, so we see that this eclipse is really strongly configured. Like, look at the software can't even deal with how much Libra there is. Like, everything's just on top of each other, which I don't know. At least in pairs, Libra might really like it that way. But we see that's really significantly configured to your Saturn. And as I was sharing before, like there's a couple things we can do. We can rewind 18 years to the previous Sero series, and then I'm subtracting 11 degrees, and basically I'm at your moon Mars. And I can also move forward to the one in 18 years. I'm a little less interested in that because that's 18 years from now. Um, but I am interested in seeing how this eclipse is at your Saturn and how this eclipse family kind of plays with the moon between Mars and Saturn. And so I'm interested in just asking you a little bit about 2005. I meant to share a little thing about me there, and maybe I'll retrograde back to that in a bit. Do you have like big memories of life experience in that kind of October 2005 world?
So I graduated college in December of 2004. And so it took me a while to get a job. And then that was when I first got my first real job and was working for the government in an intern program. So
That's crazy. So I'm born 7 years before you, 6.5. And that's when I graduated college too, because I had dropped out and chased my saxophone around the world a little bit and then went back to school. So I graduated UW in June of 2005. So I guess I'm gonna share my story right now anyway. Um, yeah, I remember my partner at the time like threw a 30th birthday party for me in Seattle, like bowling alley in Capitol Hill. And which was great. I drank too much because I used to drink and I don't now, and it's been a long time. But I had like a job interview in California the next day. Um, you know what? Maybe these two don't relate. I think so though. And the issue is I like wore like stuff that doesn't really fit a wallet or whatever. So I put my ID in like my jacket pocket and I didn't know it until I was at the airport the next day without my ID. Um, and I eventually I got like had the cab take me back to my place and then back to the airport. And I just made the plane, but my luggage didn't, so I had to like buy some clothes for the interview. And I got that job. Like that was my first job until I found astrology and bailed. But so this eclipse has like really important resonance for me in that way. Um, how closely are you related in your current work to what that first job was in 2005?
some similarities of pushing papers, you know, doing the thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
is there, I guess, a thing I'm currently contemplating, I was just thinking about these cycles today, is like, is there something that I used to do that I've since eclipsed that maybe wants to come back in? Or is there some way that I'm still kind of stuck in a work mode, as I was back then that wants to leave? You know, those are kind of questions I have.
Yeah, I want both of these jobs to be allowing me to focus elsewhere. So it's very easy. Like there's a lot of flow with work. There's not much friction, and so it's kind of not even anything I have to worry about. It's just kind of easy money, honestly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I think when I look at this eclipse down the fourth at Saturn, right? And that like you'll be moved. So have you been living solo in your place recently? Yeah. How's it been?
Great. Yeah, so sixth house perfection year. So I've really gotten to have a house for the first time, do gardening and yard work and do all of the mundane tasks. And yeah, it's been great.
And is it something that yeah, so I guess why not stick with that?
Yeah.
What's calling you to like change homes and move into a different space now?
Yeah, well, I mean, financials, I would rather travel. I would rather be in community and spend money on retreats and go adventure. And so this was like a really nice chapter of my self to be a hermit for a while and not interact with the world and just turn everything off and grow a little. Now it's time to reach back out so I don't get stuck, you know?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels to me so like Saturn, right, has this really good rap in Libra. So this eclipse on Saturn. There's just something in also in that kind of judicious nature, understanding more about balance and harmony, being a peacekeeper, right? Like it's interesting to see Mars and Saturn both in Libra, and the Sun and Saturn are strong for you. It's another thing that you and I share, right? It's a strong Sun Saturn square. Um, it almost feels to me like one of the places where you will be most at home is like in the face of like turbulent soul stuff, being somebody who can bring the balance and being a peacekeeper in that in a way like, you know. we're all schizo enough to have like a wide community within to do that with, or like the way that we're relating with the news or whatever, or the plants in the garden. But that something can be kind of missing from like your great talent set there, you know. On another level, Cancer rising, Moon in the fourth, like want you to really feel anchored and at home and connected in. So I mean, the other question I would have when I just look at a fourth house eclipse. So this would apply to, from a whole sign point of view, anyone born Cancer rising, right? Regardless of where on Earth you were born, if Cancer rising, Libra is your fourth whole sign. So are there things that are going on like family systems or structures for you right now? And if so, do you care to share about any of that? And don't feel pressured to if you don't want to.
My dad got re-diagnosed with cancer, so we're
Oh my
going
God, I'm
through
so
that.
sorry. When?
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, so pretty new, but it's looking good and he has a good outlook. So,
When was so you said re-diagnosed. When was it last up?
that's a good question. I think like 3 years ago.
Okay, so certainly
Yeah.
not something old, 18, 19 years ago. It's another time to look at it.
No.
Um, oh my gosh. So what's happening in that regard? Is it going to be okay?
Yeah, so far so good. Get doing all the tests and stuff. And then I'll get to visit for Thanksgiving. But I think that's the only family stuff that I can think about, right?
Yeah, well, that's big stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, traditionally, father is the fourth house. So seeing that stimulus makes sense, right? I'm glad that you're going to be able to go there and just offer some of that peace and all that too. You all get along well?
Yep. Yeah. We're
Good.
basically the same person.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, I want to like define that astrologically, but I think I'll leave that out for now. Cool, Kelly. Well, do you have any questions? So let me just say this one other thing. Also, 2004. So there's also a 19-year cycle of Earth, Moon, and Sun. That's like the phase repetition cycle. And we can have eclipses separated by 19 years. Unlike the Saros series, which last for like 1,300 years, coming around every 18 years, 11 days. This 19-year separation, I call them metonic strings. There can only either be 4 or 5 of them over the period of either 76 years, which is 4 times 19, or, oh, what would it be? 95, 5 times 19. So other times for folks to be considering right now, like on the 18s, 2005, oh, how do we subtract 18 from that? 1977, no, 1987. Go back 18 before that, or also like look at 19s. So 2004 and 2005 around this time of the year might be really interesting places for everyone to go investigate. Um, I'm super stoked to see you, Kelly. Thanks for coming on here and thanks for
For sure.
going to share. And I hope everything with your dad works out
Yeah,
beautifully.
just a quick question. So how does South Node in Libra work with this eclipse?
Awesome. I'm so glad you asked that. It's something I meant to bring in, right? So we have two eclipse seasons every year, and they're either at the north node of the moon or the south node of the moon. Um, there is a good reason astronomically to support the kind of newer image that the north node has to do with the future and the south node has to do with the past, which is that Earth is moving north through space. And I hesitate to go deeper to that, but I do see a general kind of global essence of North Node future, South Node past. So does Isabel. Um, I mean, the nodes are an axis, past and future are an axis. All of these things want to bring us into the middle way. That would be the present moment now. And I would say that whether North Node or South Node, like eclipses do bring like the past and the future together in one place, which is one of the great gifts of astrology, right? Like we're kind of contemplating the future by considering what's happened in the past. However, generally speaking, South nodes probably eclipses give us more opportunity to like eclipse past patterns, right? And old things. And really, like, especially, it's great that that question's coming from you, because, like, the fourth house has so much to do also with, like, depth and where we're coming from. Traditionally, the ascendant is your youth, it's what's rising, and, like, the IC is the womb, and the tomb, right? Like, once you go all the way through it. There's one more thing I want to share in your chart, if it's okay, Kelly. Some of you had written in the comments that you're in like a nodal return process now because you were born with the North Node in Aries where it is now, or some of you in nodal reversal is born with the North Node in Libra. Like Kelly, you're going through like a nodal square period. The nodes have an 18.6 year transit of the zodiac. Our nodal returns are at 18.6 and 37.2, and the next one, like 18.6 is. In between those times, we have nodal reversals. And in between the nodal reversals and the nodal returns, we have these like nodal squares. So it's not just the eclipse degrees. And, an interesting thing about this particular eclipse, and I should say this too, is like the family was last at your moon, and now it's at your sun, right? So that's a bit I should really focus in on here, because I think eclipses to the sun, moon, and to the nodes, which make eclipses, are perhaps the most powerful thing. And here we have node square sun with the eclipse square the node, right? Or sun square node. And so there's this kind of double signature that's really connecting in this way the fourth and the seventh. They're already connected in that the Lord of the seventh, Saturn, resides in the fourth. Yeah. But there's something like just really deep in the kind of soul passage in our own future and our own, past, in this kind of nodal recipe. And I think importantly, while it's easy to see like, that this eclipse is in your fourth and you're having some experiences with father, um, and home, there's also a like strong relationship focus here. So some of that will be fulfilled in like moving in with other people, because we all have so many personal relationships, especially when like friend goes to roommate or whatever. But it also speaks about relationships in general. And maybe especially going home for Thanksgiving this time and stuff, like parents' relationship, and like how you're anchored in there and how you're not, and how you would want to be more and how you would want to be less, and all those things. um Kelly, can I ask you, can you see the Q&A on your screen? It's like where I'm circling over here.
Um, nope.
Good. That's what I'm, because it has a bunch of people's chart data, although then again, like, those charts are about to come up anyway. Kelly, you're awesome. I'm super glad to see you. To try to offer a shorter answer to your question, like more things around the past. Where are we coming from? Where are we rooted? How can we like not? How can we reclaim our connection to the things and the parts of us that like we love? How can we release some of the connections to things that aren't us, or that were expressed in our past or in our lineage, etc. And I think a really deep, especially the Cancer rising chart for you, like a deep connection to the land itself. Yeah. So I love that you're like going home. Are you going to where you grew up?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility for you?
It is. My cousin is having a baby shower, so I might go home actually soon. Yeah.
I think you should. Um,
Okay.
and the other thing Kelly said earlier, she's in a sixth house annual profection. I don't think I'm going to describe what that whole technique is right now, but I also like to look at profected houses, right? So if the ascendant is in the sixth, then the fourth, like the natal fourth, is the 11th of the sixth. So that like community and like living in community is a big piece for you now. I find amazing and intriguing and also super relevant. Um, the other thing is, okay, so Saturn in quadrant houses rules your ninth. Um, and with this eclipse at Saturn, it's intriguing to know that one of the reasons that's motivating you to move out of like hermitage is also, so it sounds like maybe there'll be some more resources for travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right on. I mean, enough astrology that I'm sure a lot of this stuff's been intentional and looking, but like if you knew nothing, I would just once again celebrate you for like living according to the cosmic currents, because it certainly seems like all the things that it wants to do are being done. So good on you.
Mhm. Thank you.
You're welcome. Clark, I am currently promoting you to panelist here in the Zoom world, so just accept that invitation, please. That happens so quickly, it seems to me that you know what you're up to. So now you can share your camera and your mic. And I thought yeah, cool. I have your chart cast here. I'll just wait for you to come on screen. Maybe I can send you
Can you
the,
hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, I'm trying to, it says it's not possible to,
Let me try another thing here. Okay, see if you can share your camera now.
oh, hey,
Hey, hi.
hey, cool. Okay.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah, no, this is fun. I never get called, so.
You got called. Um, you got called a little bit later than I attempted to call you. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Barcelona. I had a
Oh,
reading with
amazing.
you before, like when this was kind of in the works. And I remember us going over that I guess it was a couple years ago.
What's most alive for you right now? Or like, are there things that even before we look at the chart you want to bring into the space?
I guess creatively speaking, trying to focus more on writing. And so that's kind of where my head is at now, and exploring that. It's something I've wanted to do. I'm a chef, but I've been wanting to kind of like get out of that. So I've been working more on a book that I kind of want to eventually put out. And there's also like this real, I don't know, different because I'm very much an introvert and fine being alone, but there's this need to connect more. So that's been
Nice.
a real theme lately.
Have you been acting on that connection need?
Um, I mean, it's kind of hard. Not
I hear
really. I
you.
mean, yeah, it's and I think when you I don't know. I'm moving back to Barcelona. I used to live here when I was younger. It's just different vibe, obviously, when you're older and not in the going out scene. So, I mean, I'm married, but I just mean like friendship wise, it's
Yeah,
more
it's even
difficult.
harder to get out when you're married. How's your Spanish?
I'm sorry.
How's your Spanish?
Um, it's good. I lost a lot of it living in the States, but it's coming back. I mean, my husband speaks Spanish, so we try to do a mix.
Yeah, right on. Have you found any others who are interested in astrology out there?
Um, Not really. There are some groups. That's what I'm trying to look for. There are some groups, but I haven't gone. I mean, it takes such an effort for me
Yeah.
to, which I haven't, I guess, really put forth. So
Yeah, I hear you. I'm in a similar boat. It just gets trickier and trickier. And there's so much happening at home, but I think that's like another great kind of Libra call, right? Like, where's our friends, right? Where's our
yeah,
relations, and how do we like excite that? You
yeah.
broke up a little bit when you were speaking about writing. What do you like to write about?
Oh, well, I've been years ago. I started kind of putting my experiences down, like of cooking. I've met a lot of crazy fucking people that I've cooked for. So I kind of want to do a mix of a cookbook plus these experiences. So that's what I've been
Wow,
working on, kind of.
that sounds
So
really
yeah,
intriguing. That sounds fun. Um,
yeah, yeah.
awesome. Well, the eclipse is in your fifth. So, right, because you're Gemini rising like me. Let me actually have you verify that this stuff up here is right.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let's put the eclipse in here. Kelly's not the eclipse. This, right. So in a Gemini rising chart, right, Libra is the 5th sign. So passion, romance, risk, creativity, fertility, like what we're birthing.
Mm.
Mars is coming to return for you. You're actually in a 6th house year, Mars year. So there's a lot about like, I guess our service in that. But yeah, I love that this eclipse is on your Saturn, who's in the 5th. He rules the midheaven sign. There's something about foreign lands in the 9th often. And I'm wondering, let me see, Mercury. I'm wondering like how that just shows for you and like living in a foreign land and not for the first time as well. Um, which I'm not seeing jumping off the screen, or I'm not seeing how to track
Mm.
it. Maybe somebody is, and you can put that in the chat. But I will say, with this eclipse at your Saturn, who rules the midheaven, it's like an awesome time for kind of a creative work project.
Oh, nice.
And there's Mercury, right on the scene. It's kind of like the Mercury eclipse midpoint right at Saturn. So like having something, and I don't know, Saturn like can be memories. I mean, for me, like, and I should just say this, this is like more, and I wanted to do this today more like in a Libra approach. Like instead of just looking at charts and saying what I think, like asking people what's alive and then seeing that in the chart, it's like, and
Mm.
I think this like really confirms for you, there's something in like your memories, there's something in your output, there's something in your journey that this eclipse can help you kind of powerfully give birth to.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
I
Okay.
should just ask about fertility and other. Are you trying to write a human into being as well? Is there any interest in?
That's like an ongoing question mark. I have no idea. I mean, I'm like 41, so I still don't know.
Yeah,
That's I
I
don't
don't want. I
know.
don't want to like push too far there. But if you want to welcome us in, feel free to. I'll just say like this is also about maybe the shadow and the light and the power of fertility.
Yeah, honestly, it's like it comes in my dreams a lot, but it's also so much fear around it. And I don't know, is that because of Saturn being in my 5th?
Um. Well, I think Saturn could certainly contribute to that. I mean, that's probably like a conversation to have not on YouTube,
Yeah.
right? Like I can tell
I
you
would
some of my fears around it, and some of them are very like material and some of them are like long reaching, especially like as we age, like the
Mhm,
health of the child, those kinds of things can come
mhm,
into, I do think Saturn and by from a whole sign perspective, Pluto there in the 7th with Saturn, like definitely offers more opportunity for some fear around, like not only like having a child, but your connection to your child. Um,
mhm,
but I don't think that it says like you're supposed to be if well, that's the wrong way to say it. You're supposed to be what
mm,
you're experiencing. That you should be afraid. That like there's something like definitive saying like don't go there or whatever. But what I will say is that this eclipse is like probably really here to stimulate your, and I should say this for any Gemini rising person, like your creativity, your passion, what you're birthing. For folks who out there who know for sure like you don't want to bring a human in at this time, like write a book. You know what I mean? It doesn't say you can't do both either, but like this is really asking us like to remember that essence behind I create, therefore I am. Right? So it's
mm.
like what are you making? What are you doing? I'm interested in this book. Will it be like I mean obviously it'll be biographical because you've lived some of these experiences, but will you write it as a
Yeah.
fiction or as nonfiction or what's the flow?
That's the thing. I have to change, I mean, basically all the names because I signed like confidentiality contracts. So all
Is that what all chefs
the
do or
names
you're
have to
just
be
cooking?
changed and I guess, well, in New York, I mean, it's these people of like status, so that make you sign not just like a normal whatever type person who's not working in public eye. So yeah, I've signed a lot, so I have to change everything, and that's the kind of where I'm at now, like how to go about that. I don't know, some days I'm like, this is ridiculous, like who wants to read this? And then the other days I'm like, oh, this is funny, because it's like a lot of crazy shit, it's like funny stories and just um yeah, you would think I'm making it up, but it's
Well,
actual real life stuff.
totally. And if it's written in a fiction context, maybe you are making it up and who cares, right? It's like and you should make some stuff up probably, right? And including names. But like if I'm understanding right, I'm kind of reading this story about this like traveling chef going through these weird experiences, but then like I'm also reading what they cooked, right? So then I get this very nonfiction like recipe that I can actually like create in my own home. Is that right?
Right, right. Yeah, that's kind of how I was going to structure like the recipes at the end of each chapter that it corresponds to. Um, but yeah, I just hope I can stay focused and because instead of all scatterbrained, and that's like my hope for this year. Right.
Yeah, totally. I know that one far too well. I think that's part of the Gemini
Yeah.
rising plight. I mean, so Mercury is in Virgo in your
Yeah.
nativity, and that's probably a place to call on and just like practice, like I'm in a place personally right now where I've been like practicing saxophone like I never did before, even when I was playing professionally, where I'm just like doing the same thing every day, you know what I mean? So like I can't write, but I know if I just wrote, then I could,
Like,
And I think that some of those fears around that you were describing before, like that's really alive here too. It's also like, fuck, you're gonna be writing about powerful people, like that Saturn Pluto conjunction in the fifth that the
mhm.
eclipse is visiting. Do you know what I'm saying? With the node is like
Oh,
right on your
cool.
Pluto and
Oh,
Lilith
yeah.
is on your sun.
Okay.
There's a little bit of like, well, I signed some stuff. Are they gonna catch up with me anyway, even if I don't use names? And you know.
I, right. Yeah, I'm like, because I really can imagine this one of these people like suing me. I mean, she tried to this crazy ass person tried to sue me before for not signing a release to get my actual money that was owed to me. So I'm like, I don't trust these people if they like come after me, but if I'm changing names, and I think it should be fine. I'm gonna have obviously an editor look at it, but yeah, sometimes I'm like, am I really doing this? Do I do this? Or am I wasting my time? So
Yeah, well, so that's
kind
another
of the
thing
headspace.
in the fifth. It's like risk. So it's
Mhm.
like this is
Yeah.
another really brilliant case of I think you're doing the chart in a super cool way. And with the eclipse at your Saturn, um, it's fun. Like we've had anyway, two charts in a row with the eclipse at a Libra Saturn and a Libra moon. That it's like
Mm.
those boundaries, right? So like what needs to go into the book to make it like awesome and what stuff doesn't have to go in there? I mean, even if she's the best story, does the best story need to go in if that's the one that's going to come after you and
Right.
all that?
True.
But so I mean, I just think that kind of like experience of like boundaries, communication, bringing a Libra like another in, like talking to an editor about it and all that. It's super cool.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, that I'm definitely feeling the um like to collaborate and really reach out to people. So hopefully um
I
I
love
choose
it.
the right person.
My last thing I'll say here, and I'm also saying this to myself and all Gemini rising beings and all beings, like astrology can be a really lonely thing, right? Like we're weird. And it can be hard to find fellow weirdos to celebrate this amazing stuff. And that's true for all
Mhm.
mystics, whether you're into astrology or not, right? And sometimes it can be super helpful to look at Meetup or whatever and see if there's a group. But also it's fifth house. So like, why don't we just birth one? Why not just create something, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if
That's
one
Totally.
person shows up, you win. You know what I mean?
Right. I I definitely agree, because it's nice to be around people who speak this language, and that would be a fun thing to do, if to put yourself out there, I guess, at least.
Have you been up to Dali's museum?
Um,
Or is it down? I think
I
it's up.
did years ago when I lived here. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's such a cool place to visit. Um, yeah, there's lots of trips I want to make. Oh, you broke up.
Yeah, we have a weird connection. I'll just say, like, there's probably some like astrology paintings in that collection up there. There are in his space here in Monterey. And it could be cool to like lead an astrology of Dali field trip with.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Oh, I would have to check that out again. Yeah, it definitely wasn't on my radar.
Right
I'm
on.
gonna-
Well, hey, it's super sweet to see you, and please let me know when the book's ready for my eyes. That
Oh
sounds
my
exciting.
gosh. I will, and I will chat with you for a reading hopefully soon.
Oh, cool. Well, I will look forward to it when stars align.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Good
Likewise.
night. Okay. Bye-bye.
Now, what do we do? This, there's lots of buttons. All right. Next we have Chicky. So let me see if Chicky's still here. First of all, buttons. And for folks who like put their name in but couldn't hang as long as we've gone, my apologies if you're watching the rest of this in the future. Chicky being one of them. Creatrix, are you here? All right, sorry, you can, this is my like staring at the list face. I don't think so. Creatrix, if you are here, will you say so in the chat? Because I don't want to pass on people, but I also want to just speak to folks who I see are here. So one is the Jupiterian. So I'm going to change your name to that and then set you up as a panelist as I type your stuff in. And I want to read this comment that just came in also, which I love, which is my advice is to write the book you want to read. Like anything, it is a risk. Like it. All right, so the Jupiterian, you should be receiving an invite to become a panelist in this thing. So please click yes on that. And that won't be on the YouTube side, it will be on the Zoom side, yeah? And once I see you over there, I'll get your chart data in. Uh-oh. We're just all like everything's eclipsed. Anyway, I see that you're here. Oh, maybe I didn't push the right button or I pushed in the wrong place. All right, cool. That seems to have taken effect. So you should be able to share your camera and your mic. And then I'm busy typing your birth data over here.
I can see you and hear you.
Cool. Do you have a start video button maybe in the lower left?
Alrighty, I did that. Alrighty, says you can start your video because
Oh, yeah, that's the same thing that happened before. Hold on just a second. Please try again.
there you go.
Awesome. What's going on?
Hey, not I'm good.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for
Sure.
sharing. What's going on in your life? What are some big things that you're bringing into the Eclipse portal?
Well, actually, let's see. I'm transitioning to a new job, starting my own business.
Wow, right on. Good for you. It's been a long time coming or what?
Yes, actually, I was a substitute teacher for maybe about 12, maybe 13 years.
Where do you live?
I live in San Francisco now.
Hmm.
I was a substitute teacher in New York and in San Francisco.
Dang, did they keep you busy? Like, are you pretty much fully working as a sub in big cities like that?
In New York, I was, yes. And since 2020, not so much here.
Yeah, things got so weird and stayed that way, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you teach like all grades?
I taught from kindergarten to about eighth grade.
Wow. Did you dig it?
I did. It was pretty good actually. It was nothing. I didn't get the positions that I wanted to teach. Like I have a concentration in English and in drama,
Hmm.
but I was being thrown into the math class.
Yeah, are you good with math?
I am, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, your chart for me, it feels like it wants more mystical and weird and out there in your work,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I
So
also
what's the
have
business you're starting?
tarot card reading
Oh,
and
wow, cool.
astrology. Yeah.
And will you do that online or
I
out?
actually have I started a YouTube channel and
Cool, I'll check it out. How's it going?
I have a small amount of followers so far, but it's growing.
Has it brought in clients for you also? Or are you doing like live readings or?
I've done a few live
Nice.
readings and I've also done some some readings for like testimonials and so yeah.
Yeah, awesome. What decks do you like?
Oh my goodness. Actually, I have the Universal Rider Waite, of course. The and I also got this one. Actually, I have recently got a new one. This is the Aleister Crowley
Yeah,
deck.
it's the kind of Golden Dawn tradition. Cool. Yeah,
Yes.
well, I mean, I love that in your chart. There's two places where I typically go for career stuff, and so one is the midheaven, which in a Sagittarius rising chart. Let me make sure I got you right. I have Moon rising in Sag.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, northern hemisphere births, especially this far north of the equator, typically will have a Libra midheaven accompanying a Sagittarius ascendant. Um, but Virgo's still the 10th whole sign in the highest part of the chart. Like Pluto by far was the highest planet above the ground when you were born, which
Yeah.
is another planet I kind of like to honor as like a career significator. Here's
Mm,
Pluto's like full 64 degrees above the ground, where 90 is the top of the sky, right? He
right.
definitely has that bid. Um, Sagittarius moon at the galactic center and like well out of bounds,
Yeah.
like well south of the Tropic of Capricorn. So that's part of why I was like, oh, it wants to be like weirder than sub teacher. Like if you were teaching drama or theater as you wanted to, like I could totally see that one working, but it
Yeah.
feels so mystic. And then with the moon square Pluto and like tied to the top of your chart and Venus in that conversation as well, right? Not
Mhm.
to mention
Right.
like you're born in eclipse season with Venus involved. That yeah, Venus ruling the midheaven, Mercury the top of the chart. Maybe that Aquarius Mercury in the third is why they like cast you as the math teacher,
Right. Yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
some say that like the whole sign 10th, of course, in the Sag chart, that's Virgo,
Mhm.
and the whole sign houses in general more is like the book that would be written about you instead
Right.
of the book you would write about yourself. So maybe like they all saw like math teacher, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But even with Aquarius, I'm seeing out of the box revolutionary, like get weird. So I of course love where you're going, and we need more counselors and the like. And here's another one, and you speak astrology clearly,
I
but
do. Yes.
where you're doing the eclipse super well, right? Because there's an eclipse
Absolutely.
right in the 10th house and starting a business and all of that. And so, may this eclipse really serve you in that capacity. Like, may it help kind of bring more light out of the shadow and more people getting to see you do your thing.
Mhm.
Speaking of, I don't know how many are here, not so much on the Zoom side, but you want to pull some cards?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right on. Um, Yeah, and I'll leave it up to you. Like, I guess my request would be like with the focus for this eclipse.
Alrighty. Let's see. I actually have my yeah. Okay. All right.
And I guess before you do, what's your channel?
It's called Stephen the Jupiterian.
Cool. Everyone check out Steven with a PH, the Jupiterian at YouTube.
Thank you so much for that. Oh my gosh. Wow.
My pleasure.
Let's see. Okay. Okay. Ooh. First card, the Queen of Pentacles.
Nice.
The Queen of Pentacles. Yeah, actually, that's actually, yeah, a money card. A materialistic type of person, person who is very mature with their money and income, I would think. And then we have the Eight of Swords.
Mm,
It's not a great card because actually it's sort of she's feeling bound and stuck in a in her mind. I think, yeah, she's probably like overthinking things. But then we have the Six of Wands, which is a celebration of getting out of that mess in her head, in their head, and that's going on in their head, I guess. Those getting their thoughts together and yeah, celebrating all that gets the or getting that celebrating the abundance that they'll be getting, and this celebrating or the what's to come. Actually, I think this is a really great time to be an astrologer and in or to be in this living at this time, because there's so much going on in the world of astrology. And
yeah,
this eclipse.
totally. It's like changing so quickly and whatnot as well, right?
Yeah,
Right on. Well, thank you so much, the Jupiterian.
thank you.
I'm gonna like take those to heart. The Eight of Swords is the maps from the Golden Dawn tradition to the Deccan that was rising when I was born. And Clark, who was up here last, so that was an interesting card to see come in. And yeah, I think that that idea of even when the abundance is like what to do with it, right? Like
Right,
the
yeah.
kind of feeling tied by our thoughts is an interesting way to explore that Eight of Swords. I very much appreciate you being here. I love looking at the eclipse from April on your Mars, and you kind of cut yourself away from something old and passionately give birth to something new with this eclipse in your 10th. May it really serve you
Yeah,
in your
it's
work moving forward and how you're seen and known.
oh, thank you. Thank
My,
you.
my pleasure. All right, Angie, I didn't see a nickname, so I'm gonna type in Angie, but I've got you up next. I see you are here. Let me set you up so that you can come on the screen. So you should receive like an invitation. There you are. Then I have to do some other thing. All right, that time I got it. Yay! What's up?
Hello, how are you?
Doing pretty well. It's like time is flying by here. I'm sure that's not some people's experience, but it's fun to do this just randomly in the middle of the day, and how wonderful that like enough people can kind of come on and play. Though we're
Yeah,
all supposed to be at work or whatever. Um, where in the world are you?
I'm in Des Moines or just west of Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh, got it. Cool. I used to like love getting to Iowa so much. I had a band in Boulder and we would drive out to New York or whatever. And it's just all flat until you get to Iowa, you know, and like the blessings of that first hill as a game
Yes.
changer. And so you were born in Des Moines. So have you always stayed pretty close to home?
I took a little route doing, I joined the Navy on a whim and lived in Hawaii for 3 years and then went, yeah. And so I lived in Mississippi for school and then lived in Hawaii and then came back.
So in Pearl Harbor or where?
Yep. Hickam, Pearl Harbor Air Force and Navy base. Yeah.
What do you feel from your experience is the amount of people who join the Navy on a whim?
I'm sure a lot. It was that weird time, what was it, 2008, 2009, when there was kind of a crash. And so there was a lot of people my age that were because I was 26 at the time, that were kind of like older and just not sure what to do with their lives. And so they joined. So it was a kind of cool little, not all 18-year-old, 19-year-old people kind of just not sure what to do. So we all joined the Navy, I guess.
Was it good for you?
Yeah, it was really good. I always wanted to travel. I love meeting people. I mean, I've got a lot of Gemini and Sagittarius. So I love all of that. I've got my Libra moon. So it was good. It was a nice little break, but I brought my little rock. I thought I was breaking up with my partner at the time to leave and then got scared and married him. So it was very interesting in that department.
Did he move to Hawaii as well then?
He did, and it was really a good turning point for him. I always called him Eeyore before that, and something about, I don't know, I've looked at the timing in his chart a lot now, and something about the timing of that and the timing of, and then this change of scenery really helped him a lot to like evolve very quickly. So
when you're in the Navy in Hawaii, do you get to Hawaii at all?
it was really cool because I love people. My husband's very like, don't want people in my space. And I'm very much like, I want people in my space. So I loved that people would come and they'd stay with me because, well, we got a place to crash in Hawaii. And so like my aunts and my cousins and my parents, and, you know, like all these people would come and they'd actually stay at my house. And so then I'd take them all over the island. But I also got that like, it's very different to have people like staying with you and having morning coffee than just visiting, you know. So I enjoyed that.
What was happening for you in 2005? So that was before all that, obviously. I guess you would have been 22 when the last eclipse of the same family came around.
Yeah, that's about when I had just started dating my now husband. And my sister, I was trying to think about it, and I was like, well, my sister, that's when she got pregnant, and my little sister got pregnant with my first nephew. And but yeah, it was just, it's always been, I struggle with my Libra, right? Like I want to be this very open, like go with the flow, do all these things, be like, you know, I've got the Venus Leo, like I want to be this free person, but I like my harmonizing Libra to be like, everything's safe, everything's okay. Let me take care of everybody in my life to be okay, you know? And so that's definitely a theme that was going on then. It's going on to some extent now.
Yeah, so like doing Libra with more of the other focus than self, yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't balanced, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully husband knows how to deal with super social wife, because that's definitely in the signature, right? I mean, intriguingly, Leo rising puts Gemini on the 11th. All right. So, I mean, for me, I mean, I love Venus here in Leo. She's very elongated from the sun as well. Just about maximum elongation. Yeah, her maximum is when her speed matches that of the sun. And when you're born, Venus is going 56 minutes a day and the sun's at 57. I mean, it's just like as far as in that particular cycle, Venus got from the sun. There are
Yeah.
places on Earth where that would have been visible, where it's like nighttime, maybe places you've been. There's a thing about Hawaii I just noticed as you were sharing. It's pretty cool. Like, if I held you up to the sun when you were born, right? The sun is over in the eastern side of the sky. Like it's like this way towards Toledo and eventually New York City. But that line is called the local space line. It comes all the way around the world through Hawaii here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, it's like the nodes in Mars, right, and on Oahu, right, at Pearl Harbor, and like part of your soul path was to be a warrior there, right? It's like
Yeah.
pretty intriguing. And Neptune as well, like in the Navy. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
The astro maps, like they're one of my favorite things because in a sea of weird shit that is astrology, they take the cake. Um, yeah. Anyway, this idea of how do we Libra, um, right? How can we do things in a cool, balanced way? And I think oftentimes we try to keep the peace by muting ourselves, right, and our needs, but then we're not in peace and there is no peace. Do you know what I mean? So like, how do we like, and perhaps like in this eclipse chart for all of us, let me just actually do that. That Scorpio Mars is helping us like do this in a different way where we can be very expressive of like our needs and our truth. And I think of the Taurus full moon, the lunar eclipse that follows, that can do that as well. But as you know, Angie, the eclipse is in your third house. So one of the things about the third is expression and communication. It's certainly not only that, it's like our skills, it's our tools. I often teach like the signs, or like the kind of house sign correspondence that modern astrology does, which isn't like, it's not the first temple in which I pray, but it's an interesting one. In the movie Castaway, it like totally goes in order through, and like the part where he's like building help on the beach and logs, and he's like learning how to get the milk out of the coconut and whatnot. It's like so third house, it's like, all right, so like, all right, I'm a monkey, like, and how do I use tools and stuff like that, right? So we had this eclipse like pretty close to your midheaven and your ninth sign um, uh, in April, and now this eclipse right with the moon and south node. So really like deep, like kind of past stuff and patternings can be there. Such a strong alignment too, or reminds us of the strong alignment between the Libra beings and the Gemini beings in your nativity, like super strong trine there. Um, so, I mean, I'm definitely feeling like past, right? But there's so much to move forward. And some of it seems to be speaking to me about, like, especially given that the lunar eclipse that follows is going to be right here at the top of your chart. And the ruler of your 10th whole sign is Venus, who's rising. Some of that can speak, by the way, of working for yourself. But there's something
Quit my
about
job.
you quit
I
your job.
I quit my full-time job like August, end of August of last year, and had
Nice.
no idea what I was going to do.
Wow.
But I had been studying human design for a long time. And so then I really dove into astrology really hard.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to marry like Gene Key's astrology, human design, and I have a podcast. So
Brilliant. What's your podcast called?
it's called Evolving on Purpose.
Evolving on Purpose. Awesome. I'm stoked to check it out. Yeah, I'm interested too in So anyway, before I ask all that and make this more about me, Pluto square Pluto, there's a lot of things going on for you, right? Like we've had, that's interesting, like there's been a lot of this 82, 83 come in so far. Um, yeah. Hmm. Anyway, 83, by the way, it relates like Venus cycle to some things that she's doing now, or at least in June of this year for you. Um, Having a podcast, having an eclipse in the third, especially given that you speak about like esoteric things, it's like what a great way to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that this eclipse will then be staged to really kind of help put the podcast on the map in a cool way too. Like when eclipses happen, we should pay attention to what the nodes are up to. So there's something about the IC and the MC, and like in the works in that regard. And with the Lord of the midheaven sign, which is in the ninth of kind of spiritual means, the house of God traditionally, in the 11th, right? Himself kind of occulted Mars behind the sun when you're born. We want to like hopefully do occult things in communities. I mean, in one way you got to do this was to, be in the Navy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that Mars Neptune in Sun Neptune like brings more of the Navy than Army or whatever into the mix. But I'm seeing this like Mars behind the sun, courageously exploring hidden things. And this is like a very different essence of Aries. And it's probably remembering the power of communication. Right. So when we speak our truth, then balance, not we don't speak our truth to have balance. Yeah. Um, your
Yeah.
podcast, is it you? Or are you doing that with a partner or in a group?
It's just been me interviewing guests. I struggle with doing one on like myself. Every time I go to record by myself, I have so many things that I want to talk about, and I struggle to kind of funnel it in. But yeah, so far it's all been guests, just people that are interesting and trying to share their human design and their astrology a little bit. I've tiptoed into that, and I want to start a YouTube video series to kind of teach people how to. I did Daniel
Great.
his shamanic astrology. I've been digging into that a lot, and I love his Mars and Venus. But when you pair it with the gene keys and like give it this new beautiful language, I don't know, it's magical. So I want to do more of that as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, I imagine there's some folks here. I'm not sure who, well, probably not, but maybe that haven't heard of human design or gene keys. So do you want to say anything about what that is?
Yeah, so human design uses the astrological points like astrology, but it takes it into a body graph. So the astrology gives you this wheel of life, which is really beautiful. You can see all of the different houses. But when you're looking at astrology or a human design chart, it's really in the body. So you can see kind of the little talking, like, is this coming from my head or is this coming to my throat? Is this in my sacral? It's all of the chakra points. And so it gives you a really beautiful kind of like what's the mechanics of where it's moving in your body. And really, if you have all this throat energy, it's like, how are you sharing? If you have all the sacral, like, how are you creating? And so it gives it another layer that I think is beautiful. And then Gene Keys is just like a more kind of poetic way of taking those 64 different points that human design uses and using them in another way. So yeah, I wish I could just put it all together so it could be really easy for people, and that's my goal at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. The human design kind of revelation that Rahuru received, well, I guess in the 80s, is like this
Yeah.
trip, right? It's like a very different way to play with the planets, and it's as interested in as the moment that the sun was 88 degrees before your natal sun. So basically around 88 days before your birth, as in your birth moment, and combine some interesting things. Yeah, I love that you're doing those together. I mean, a thing that has always kind of tripped me out in human design in general and in Gene Key's work is that like transits are more global, right? Like it's less about how like the transiting planets would be activating like a nativity as to just like what's happening in this moment for all of us. So,
Yeah.
that being said, have you looked at human design from like a mundane astrology perspective, like looking at the design chart for an eclipse, for example?
I mean, right now the eclipse is going to be at the 57, which is that little, I always see it as the antenna on the spleen. So if you were to think of the spleen as that very instinctual, very quiet talking to you, the 57 always looks like the antenna that's, it's like if you're quiet and if you listen and if you really use your intuition instead of doing confusion, which is the other side of the 57. So it's like using that intuition. So I think that's a really beautiful for this eclipse as well, is this intuitive hit maybe could be kind of triggered by this 57. But yeah, I don't love like doing transits or any of that with the human design. That's probably why I was so excited about astrology and realizing that there's this house system and this patterning that you could use. But I really love the big three. So seeing somebody's profile, seeing their type, and seeing their authority. I have an emotional authority, which I can't really find in astrology as much. But it's this wave that always goes really, really excited, and then it falls off a cliff, and then it goes really excited, and then it falls off the cliff. And whenever I fell off the cliff, I quit whatever I was doing because I was like, ugh, this is uncomfortable. And now that I see that wave patterning through human design, knowing that's like my authority, instead of dropping what I'm doing, I just see all that emotional energy that got me excited to learn or grow or move in this direction. It has to kind of fall off the cliff to see the other side. And then I have so much more information. So I don't throw things away when I fall off the cliff anymore. So it was really helpful for me. And I really love sharing like authority in human design. I just don't see that in astrology as much. So it's like one point that I really like.
Yeah, if you want, we can look for that in your chart together.
Sure. Yeah.
Before we do, I want to say, like, so the 57th like key, right?
Yeah.
For folks who haven't looked at like the gene keys or the human design, it basically maps the I Ching and the 64 hexagrams to the zodiac, right? When you get these weird slices because 360 and 64 are weird bedmates, just like mathematically. Um, but do you know in the gene keys what the 57, like what the three states are?
Mm, I could find it in like 2 seconds.
Cool. Yeah, the other thing is I think just creating a gene key chart for an eclipse moment, right? And then seeing it just as like a being would be cool. Like I haven't seen anybody do that yet. Like I haven't seen
Yeah.
anybody tell me, besides working as it you just did, like right, like so, oh, the sun and the moon are in this like key, and then oh, Mercury's in this key at the same time or whatever. Like it'd be interesting to just treat the eclipse like a person and create a human design chart and then see if it's a manifester or whatever. I don't want to like take it too far into that space. But what do you find
I could probably
57?
so the 57 is the shadow is unease, fear, band tendencies. The gift is intuition, trusting in the whole, and the city, or like, if we were all Buddhist, the Buddhi, or the Buddha, the art of softness, clarity. So yeah.
So you say those three again?
Unease, intuition, and clarity.
Got it. Cool. Right, because unease is often just like an unhealthy relationship with our intuition, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I see that the 57 is like. It's like if you listen to it, you have this kind of super gift of tapping in. It's like an antenna. But if you don't, you're always just kind of uncomfortable and not sure which way to go.
totally. I mean, even when we listen to it, sometimes it's super uncomfortable, but it's just forming that relationship, right? So many of us have been told to ignore our intuition, including by many astrology teachers, right? So, like, we want to be careful that we need to stay curvy. Yeah, so folks, if you're not knowledgeable about Richard Rudd's Gene Keys book, it's definitely highly recommended for just deep contemplations of life. So check it out, the Gene Keys. All right, I want to look for that thing that you described that you see in your Gene Keys code, but maybe not in the astrology. And would you say, I think I need to hear it again, or maybe even in a different way. So,
Okay.
what would the thing, and why is it not in your astrology chart?
So when I look at my astrology chart, like I mean, I see if we were to, so emotionally, right? Emotionally, it usually is through the moon. It's in Libra, so that would be more of a harmonizing or, um, I don't know. I don't know if I see that as this emotional wave, and it's not the emotional wave that is triggered. My emotional wave is actually unconscious in my body graph, so it wouldn't be in my chart. But it's my emotional authority is what they teach in human design, which I'm like you, I hold everything very lightly, right? So I can see kind of all these different ways. But so emotional wave is triggered, and for me, it's going to be a really high one, right? So some people have this little tiny triggering here and there. Some people are more like meeting. This one is like, it's like you get excited and you're on something and you're pushing this emotional ball up the hill and you're so excited and you're telling everybody about this new thing you learned or how exciting it is. And then it's like, as soon as it gets to peak excitement, it falls off a cliff and it's like, everything is terrible. You see every problem with this thing. It's just like, and then you just don't want to leave your house or talk to anybody for like a day or two because you're like, oh.
Yeah, so feeling some of like the bipolar nature, not to say that as like a clinical
Yeah,
diagnosis, the ups and the downs. Well, I mean, first of all, like that's Gemini, right? So we don't usually think of Gemini it happening in that way, like in the emotional space. But
yeah,
you know, you're Leo rising, so traditionally you're associated with that sun, and the
yeah,
sun's exactly opposite Neptune.
yeah, yeah. That's
Right.
been a fun
And
one.
so Mars is there bringing some turbulence. Like when I hear authority, I think Saturn, right? And you know, by the way, with the speed of the moon, like the moon, it's like it's moon, sun, Mars, Saturn, Neptune with the nodes, like all in a really strong wedge shape, right? So it feels to me that some of like the feeling nature of the thing is coming from the moon Neptune. Like I don't see like the moon. I mean, she's just connected to all this, and the first thing that she's going to do after you're born is trine Mars,
Yeah,
right? She's actually carrying, when you're born, she's carrying Venus to Mars. um but like, so there's just like a lot of stimulus there. Is your Mars out of bounds? He
I
is.
think so.
Yeah, so I mean, there's like there's a weirdness, you know. So I think part of the Libra thing and like breaking out of like the this is another, and this is the place where sadly I have to end because that alarm told me I actually do have something to do. But like the Libra bit of not only wanting to keep the peace but wanting to belong, right? Which is like ancient and necessary and beautiful. Um, like often it can keep us from finding our fam, right? Like we can try to fit into something that we are not, right? And as we kind of like allow ourselves to be weird and break out and stuff and then start finding like our true crew, like it just reorients. But for me it's like the power of your moon that this eclipse is reminding of you now is the ability to relate. That's going to be so available as long as you're not trying to relate with something that's not you, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and I think in general, gosh, it's really cool to hear like what you're up to professionally now. It seems like it'll be great for your podcast. Um, and yeah, what a cool treat here at the end to like talk to fellow, I don't know,
yeah,
starry folk. Not that we all are not, but that you're working this way and professionally. And yeah, for me, it's like that your chart, it's very, even though you're born by day, just given that the moon and Neptune connections here, it's very watery. Like even though they're in air signs, like air is moist, you know? And that's where I see it in your astrology chart. Like if we were doing a session, I'd probably lead with that.
yeah.
Are you an artist?
No, I went to art school, but I wouldn't say I'm actively practicing. I mostly do it with like cooking and kind of beautifying my life. But Yes,
Yeah.
that would.
Well, life is art, astrology is art, human design's art too. But yeah, oftentimes when Neptune's strong like that, I had 3 sessions in a row yesterday with amazing artists, and all had really strong Neptune. And I
Yeah.
think you'll find that like part of the radiance of the Leo mission expressed through a Gemini sun is just to like share the word, which you're up to, but with that sun Neptune to like share the vision. And it can be really helpful to have that visual tool. Like, there's something about the 3 triangles behind you that's like doing this whole thing. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? And it matters, but it doesn't matter if I don't have to know. Anyway, so many other people put your birth info in here. I'm sorry I couldn't get you. I'd really like to drop in with each and every one of you. Angie, thanks for spending time. The Jupiterian. Clark and Kelly, thanks for sharing your chart data. What a wonderful treat to be able to tune into this powerful moment with you and your individual charts. And may this eclipse for each and every one of us really help help us bring a greater sense of ease, peace, balance. May we look into the shadow of where we are unbalanced, where the world is unbalanced, and do what we can to not feel overwhelmed so that we can bring more of the power of our own self to contribute to that piece of the world in our personage, in our relations, in our immediate environment, and in places that maybe we'll never touch with our own feet, but we can still heal with our own love. Thanks for spending some time, y'all. See you in space.